under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order with everyone present. First item on the agenda this morning, Scott Logsdon, our recycling supervisor, with some department updates. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning.
you sit on the side so that you and
Probably haven't been here since we changed the tables.
Yeah, I think I have, but I just haven't seen it. We got a couple of things. One is, one of our employees, longtime employee, retired. His last day is August 16th. We're going to have to do something about replacing his full-time employee. And also, I'm going to retire in January. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I don't really feel comfortable right now, running ahead and replace one person and then another person and then possibly another if someone from the inside is chosen to fill my spot. So I would like to kind of fill my spot and then move from there.
You think you have a
And then let your successor fill the other spot, is that?
Yeah, so they can, I mean, that person should have the same. Who they're getting. Yeah,
I think we have to open up your positions to public.
right, I'm sure.
you see a viable candidate within your department?
I do.
No names.
Yeah, no names, but I understand. That's my concern, because I think the training side of it is important.
It would take a long time to train someone on the workings of the equipment out there and just the quality type things we look at every day. That it'd be difficult to bring somebody in the supervisor position that is kind of like.
So you said you are in January?
I'd like for my last working day to be January 3rd. It's the last day of that pay period. And then, if the board is okay, I would like to continue on in the part-time role until such time as my replacement is fully trained or if I'm no longer needed.
What do we do in the meantime if your current employee is retiring?
We've got enough part-time people and on-call people to cover. I don't know how long I want to cover it for, not like forever. For the time span of maybe a few months, it would be.
Question for you, Ben, how was this handled when Terry quit that time? The hiring process and who?
So this board is the hiring authority for the supervisor position. So you would arrange for publication and distribution of the help wanted ad and so on, and then do the interviews and so on.
Okay.
And once that person, when you choose someone, if Scott's still there, you have to define who's still the supervisor, but then that team too, at least, would hire would choose any internal position that would then get approved by this.
It seems to be an appropriate time to begin that process for interviews.
Right now. Here, one more point, I guess. I'm gonna have knee replacement surgery in about a month. It's not like I'm going far, far away, I'll be able to be reached by phone for whatever I can do over the phone. But that's gonna cut into the time frame of training, for sure.
So if we hire someone, we give them the title interim
Yeah.
supervisor up until the date that retires.
How would that work for pay?
You would be paying basically 2 supervisors in the meantime.
Could you hire somebody with the intention of having them start as a supervisor, but can be filled with part-time or the other position now?
If you hire them for the other position, you can't just promote them to supervisor.
You still gotta.
You'd have to re-advertise again.
Supervisor.
Now, if you hire someone as the supervisor to replace Scott and you have both of them on staff, I mean, you're gonna have extra money because you aren't paying this other person, so out of the full-time employee line, so it seems like if you don't overlap too many.
Yeah, it's a relatively short timeline anyway.
It is.
You know, you and I worked on recycling stuff before, you and I, and Scott, sit down. Both of them bring it back on Monday. Discussion.
Oh, yeah, we can sign it right here. Or wanna go ahead with.
Well, obviously, we're gonna have to put the job up. You're gonna have to list the job,
That's the job.
any which way.
But we don't know if we're listing it right now, how we're gonna handle it to, and when we hire them, if they would be supervisor, if they would be interim supervisor, what would Scott be doing? We have time here. We should discuss this and then come up with a plan and look at it on Monday.
We have a job description from the last time. Okay. Maybe we can take a peek at that, you know, as a board. And
I
discuss
discuss it, all look at that and then maybe Monday,
next Monday, discuss it.
if we want to change the job description, get that up to us, that would be great.
If we can get that out and advertise it for 2 weeks. And then look at which applicants we have and kind of go forth. Getting taken care of relatively soon.
Yes, you've got 4 weeks until you're out of pocket on medical leave.
For not running, I'll be available.
Yeah.
Only my phone.
One, yeah.
And you feel comfortable while you're out that there's enough people out there to cover
Yes.
you and the person that just resigned.
Yes.
Great.
I've been doing a little bit of training on the side here, knowing that this was coming up. I didn't want to like completely blindside you guys, but. So we'll be able to continue. I'm confident.
Were you able to get a hold of DHS then?
Yes,
Okay.
she's gonna get back to me. They're not sure what date they're leaving out there yet, how they want to do it, and if they're gonna box everything up and send it to us in boxes. I told them if they didn't need file cabinets, I could just send some folks out there. They could have some people there. We would load the file cabinets and all, right in our enclosed trailers, lock them up and shred them as time permitted. And then if they didn't want file cabinets back, we scrapped thousands of file cabinets in like years, so. And all that place.
Yeah.
Nobody, I don't, how long has it been since anybody's bought a new file cabinet?
Do they still sell them?
I would doubt if they do, if they sell very many.
Okay. Anybody have anything else for Scott Wallace?
What's the latest on number 5s and 7s?
We still don't accept them.
But to the,
Oh, to the,
that people keep asking me and I refer to the way, WinneshiekWaste.com site, but
right,
just for the record, why don't we do 5s and 7s like some other bigger cities? do?
because they have no market for them. None of my plastic buyers want it. There are, there's a lot of number 5s that kind of look a lot like a number 2. There's a lot of number 5s and 7s that look a little bit like a number 1, so they actually kind of get into our mix a little bit, but we're allowed a little slop. But as far as a market for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7s, there just isn't one. Not for us.
Was there discussion at the recycling conference about this at all, at the state of Iowa level?
I just
Evan went,
I
right?
haven't.
And you work with Evan
Yes.
through education. Did he
Yeah.
mention anything
No,
about that?
mentioned it.
Thank you.
But that was great.
Thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks for letting us know.
Good luck on that knee surgery.
Yeah, thanks.
Consent agenda?
Yes, I've got the minutes and the recorder's monthly report.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
The motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion on it? None. All those in favor, say aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Update on the CSB building. John Halverson has a quote from a local electrician for utilizing the Alliant program for the LED replacements over there in the building, considerably shorter payback time. Instead, it's not the 15,000 that was estimated approximately in the energy report. John's actually got a reliable quote from local electrician with fixtures included, including replacing all the exterior fixtures to all LED for $5,131.
Wonderful.
So it's not he's going to go ahead, that's in his department. So he's going to go ahead and authorize that, because when you saw our last electric bill, it just came of $3,900 instead of the prior month at $2,400. We want to move in that direction. That makes a whole lot of sense.
Should be about.
And I'm hoping,
3-year payback.
does anyone have any information or heard anything? Is it worth contacting RC&D to see if there is maybe some grant money to change out to a more efficient air conditioning system, to see if we can get that? Like if it- See if there's something out there that we could try to find some grant money to help us with that, because we got aging equipment with the exception of one.
Yeah.
But if we could also tackle that a little bit, that would help us in energy saving.
Mark and I met with Krista this morning over some of this space for public health within the building about going the DHS side of it yet. We're still kind of up in the air on that. She sent me another email on Friday that everything is submitted. Their new IT guy is looking into the ICN. And since they have somebody new on staff, it might take a little bit, but that's where the hang up is. We get any information from the DHS. We briefly discussed the generator and moving of the generator. Mark and I had a conversation last week, and we just threw out the idea of seeing if there's any grant money out there to put a generator for the whole building. As to just move that generator and see where that price range is.
What does the food pantry have their own backup?
Yes,
Yeah.
they have their own generator.
So that half of the building, yeah, would just be the other half. As far as it was, there's no grant money in.
How big is the generator the food pantry has?
I
Could it
can't-
accommodate the whole building?
No,
No.
it's not big enough for the whole building. They put that in, they manage it and take care of it.
In our budget, it would seem, we're not doing vaccine storage.
Well, no, they're still doing some, so I know they got some,
But that could be, we could accommodate that through the refrigeration that exists under generator at the food pantry.
Yeah.
But it seemed to me that rather than a whole building generator for down there, we have a bigger need, since the one that we thought we could use from Calmer isn't going to work up here well to provide
Yeah,
what
that
we need
came
for the
up
courthouse.
too. We had that. Yeah.
So instead, if we focused finances in that direction to be able to provide for emergency service for the courthouse building, we might want to look at that instead.
The thing with the vaccines and stuff, they all have to be housed in public health area, so they would need a separate generator.
We also brought up if we get battery back, I mean, we can check on battery backup too, instead of.
And we need to resolve the generator at Smith Building this week, because if we want to keep on our timeline to do the transfer September 3rd, we need to know
Yeah,
that's staying, and if so, how much they're gonna, the action will pay for it, or if we're removing it, then we just need to take it. Make sure that's stipulated in the purchase agreement.
I would put it in their court and let them make an offer.
Is that generator at Smith Building big enough for our needs at Spectrum? No.
well, the coolers,
Just for
they just put it in
public health.
coolers like it is there, but it ain't to do with the whole building.
But the estimate of relocating that one was the range of what, 17,000 or so.
Well,
One large house.
That's what we were discussing that this morning also, that estimate included a lot of other things. And but she told me to try and get a hold of Novak and see what that estimate was for. And, they looked over all the other electricity in the building and everything else, so they know which circuits go where. Because there's gonna have to be, they have 4 coolers, all gonna have to run on a separate circuit on these. And we have to figure out how many circuits are within the public health side of the building.
May not have it.
May not have to add any, but they should have all that
So they
knowledge.
plug in on their own hand.
How soon will you have those answers? Because if it, we don't know what that 17,000 price tag
I
entails.
guess
Included.
the-
So if that generator could function for public health and it's not that expensive, it makes sense to move it with us.
Except we may be better off. That is not a high dollar generator. It's really, the size of that generator appears to be more like what you would use on your house to provide for your house.
Oh, okay.
And
That's why we just got it for
Yeah.
a few.
If that's the
what it's
only size it is, it shouldn't be $17,000 to move it.
I know it's very expensive. And, you know, I had a conversation with our engineer and Jeff, his road superintendent, about, is that usable out there for the main mechanic shop? And no, it's not.
Too small.
Too small. And then that brings around, we'll come back to the other later.
We can come back to this, yeah, in the miscellaneous. Good Mike, his time. Is he sitting here so patiently? Next time the agenda, Mike Kueny, our county engineer with some road update. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. A lot of the same things going on. It's construction season, so I'll just go through that. Nick Grisman, I'll coordinate with him later in the day for to work on the annual report. Bridge 5, north and south of abutments are poured. They're getting ready for placing beams at here shortly. Bridge 208E, same thing as last week. I have not heard back from a couple of the emails I sent out about mitigation. Frankville Road, culverts 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are complete. Culvert 11 was set last week and it will be finished today. Culvert 10 will be finished this week. We still need to procure a crane for culvert 4. We've got a new bid since I wrote this, so I'll call it a favorable bid. It'll change our schedule a little bit, but culverts I, A, B, C, and D will be repaired prior to culvert 4. If you need to see what those are, I brought a little map for you. W14 ditch projects are ongoing. We're still a month from finishing roughly. K Construction will be working on Bridge 313 and 317A. W14 culvert extensions are poured. Bridge 313 concrete pour should be today, the last I heard. And then mobilization for 317A. They're talking about doing that this week. So lots of stuff going on for our guys. For the FEMA event for June 21st is over. Staff is processing FEMA claims. Then the all department meeting is tomorrow. So
At 10.
it's at 10. Yes. at 10
So we,
o'clock.
Yeah.
one thing on that, we need to figure out if the board members are planning to go to that. If there's gonna be 3 or more of you, we need to have it posted, and it wouldn't normally be the type of meeting we would have public attend, because it's training for the meeting. But if you're 3 or more of you are there, then we have to make that as a.
I'm gonna
And
go.
it is, we were sending a flyer out when I left the office, just so that's all being worked on then. So
I guess I talked to Beth right before I came over here, and she didn't know about whether you want to have it open to the public meeting or not, and so that depends on this board.
Do you want to open the public?
the more people that are there, I'll say the better, but when I say that and mean a few members of the public like this would be fine, but if we get
I don't think you're gonna get more than this.
You better bring your own chair.
Who actually was intending on.
I'm planning to take it.
I would like those.
I would plan.
They need to be
Yeah, it needs to
posted.
be posted.
Yep.
We have
We
to post it.
will post it as soon as we get done with the meeting here, so.
I think it's valuable to.
You might have to find some chairs to bring out there, just not sure if that's,
bring my own.
How many hours before the meeting do we need to post it again? Better post it like in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
so I think it's, meeting's being watched, so yes.
Great.
Post that
Thanks,
meeting.
Beth.
Yes. Let's see, third member of the maintenance shop team is being vetted. He is hoping to start August 19th. Speed study for Middle Hesper is ongoing. Data collection is finished. I have started writing the report. It is going to be here. I'm going to have a rough draft probably by the end of the week. Subdivision data is gathered. That's just on the back burner, but I will have to possibly for you. Phone carriers for crew are being mauled. I need to work with John Lukey on that. And then Canoe Ridge Seal project pre-con meeting on July 24th. August 12th is still the expected start date. We will have a county patching operation this week. This it's going up on today and then Wednesday, perhaps a little bit longer as needed prior to the actual project. And then just a reminder that the striping of that project will happen after a month or so after the actual placement of the seal, auto seal.
Going back to that phone carriers, would it be possible just to give the employees an allowance for the use of their own phone? Or they don't have to carry two phones?
Well, they can use the county phone as a personal, and I personally have my own and have two phones myself. I haven't looked into that. I've got too many other things right now that are, I'll call it, more important. Definitely want to look into that. But the one carrier is not working out real well for us right now, so.
I just know that's what we did in the city of Washington
Okay.
for the maintenance department. We gave them what it was. I'll just use $50 a month toward. They use their own phone.
Most of ours that get reimbursements towards their own phone are like 20 or 25.
And maybe that was a dollar amount.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
what we're-
know exactly.
That's what several
25.
people are getting here in the county right now, 25.
And the crew guys don't have aren't taking up a lot on that, because I know that they have two phone numbers that I have on the contacts on, so they have two phones also. So,
And our issue is coverage by carrier.
yeah, it's just, it's a different carrier and it's just not west and north, it's just not as robust as we need it to be. So. Any questions?
Too bad we can't get something off our 911 towers.
Yeah.
Do it.
A big busy week.
It's been a lot of, this admin work, so.
You say on the village construction equipment on site for about 2 days, are they setting up a plant someplace?
They'll be mobilizing, and I'm forgetting the exact spot that they're mobilizing, and they might set up on Sunday, but they're planning on hitting the Canoe Ridge Road at Monday morning, yes, so. We're working with one of the Canoe Ridge kennels is got a special concern that we're trying to accommodate. Sure. So,
Are we waiting on cure time on culvert extensions like W14 so that we can finish that?
yeah, those are, I think, 7 days, so they'll be starting to grade up against those concrete.
Yeah, we've got about a mile left to go to the west. so far?
Honestly, that is such a big project, I've just not even.
Let them go.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really making a difference, so.
I need to get out there and look at it. I didn't get a chance to last week, so,
For a while, queue times were so long.
so.
Have they shortened recently? And
Well, it takes 28 days, but it's set and you have 7 day strength, so. I don't know where they're at, but that's
As you
the
mentioned, like
idea.
a year or two ago, the cure date was really longer than anybody expected to be.
I'm gonna have to, I don't know the specifics on this, so.
Because of the change in the makeup of the.
Yeah, it won't affect W14 because they're still got plenty of places to go besides that one extension down there.
Yeah,
And that Bridge 5 seems like it's coming along at a pretty good pace. So I suppose you have that 28 days cure once they pour the deck surface.
well, right now it's the abutment, so then after the abutments, they're jimmying the site up so that they can set the beams. I think that they're gonna have to, I think they're gonna have to bring another crane in, so that's kind of not desirable, but that's where they're at on that. That's the latest I've heard on that. How about that?
One more question, 14. On the shoulder, are we also going to do some shouldering where 14 comes out of Fort going back towards where we turn off to go back towards Spillville? Is any of that in that kind of a quasi residential stretch through there going to be extended?
Is that the area called Dogtown? Oh, I just got informed of it just this morning. I think that what we're gonna do is reshape
Some of
that area. I don't think that's gonna be the fill. I think there's enough, what it's told is there's material there that, and they're just gonna reshape that
Okay.
to be more effective.
Some of that's pretty thin and doesn't give us much shoulder support. I'm
Yes.
hoping that was still on the radar.
If it's Dogtown, I think it is.
I think.
I think that's I think that's been addressed with me this morning, so.
Comment,
Yes,
you have to have a lot in your head, in your
well,
mind, in your heart. Oh, it's amazing to watch, Michael.
oh, well, thank you for the kind words. I have a fantastic staff and a fantastic crew, so.
We've seen some of your staff here also, and you're right, they're very good. And a good team.
Yes.
Yeah.
It made my life as easy as it can be.
It's kind of boost you need on Monday, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is.
Oh, I don't know, if it's, you got email about the president out by the golf course one, engine brake things.
Yeah, I talked with him back and forth. Was that Thursday? I think it was. Series of emails. Basically, nothing has changed out there, so I'm not inclined to do anything about it. Just, if we're gonna do something about it, we have to do kind of a whole county-wide thing, as far as I can tell, unless it's something special. And he
So some cities have engine brake ordinances, but the county does not. So we can't prohibit the use of that, so. Now, whether we can even have one, I don't even know if that's legal or not, because
Don't have the.
I don't know if that's authority that you even have to prohibit that. I don't know that.
You know, Decorah does have. them.
Yes, some cities have
It
those.
doesn't seem to do much good because I can tell here all night long.
I did offer to help him, thinking that something new had changed in the situation, but this is normal operations happening, and I didn't want to disrupt normal operations from going on with
What I
that.
saw in the emails, I think you guys have a pretty good understanding.
Yeah.
Where you're both coming from on that.
Yeah, I mean, I can hear the racetracks on Friday and Saturday nights, so. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have it, I'm just saying it's one of those things
We're gonna
where
have some ambient noise.
things happen, so.
And I didn't mean to push that one off on you, but I figured it was a lot better for you to answer the questions because there's a lot of things there that.
But
Knowledge.
5 of us. have
Yeah.
a different answer.
I do have one question for Ben, and once we get done, can we talk about the income tax receipts that you're,
Or the property tax.
that's very, kept in my mind.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
thank you.
Just, she posted it at 9:45 for tomorrow's meeting.
Good. Anyone have anything else for Mike? Thank you.
All right.
Yes, you should. Thank you.
If that generator.
We haven't, many.
I think there's a hazmat exercise in here at 10 tomorrow. With Sean. And that's what I've got this week, other than the FEMA meeting tomorrow.
There's a hazmat and
I
FEMA
don't-
meeting at the same time.
Yeah, I've got down hazmat at 10 tomorrow, so I'll check with Sean and see why that's on here.
I think.
Anybody else have it
I
down?
think Sean is gonna be.
Sean, are you on?
He's gonna be able to shop tomorrow at that 10 o'clock meeting.
Hazmat is Wednesday here at 7, on the 7th, what I have,
That's what I have too.
but that's
But
Wednesday.
tomorrow's
I know.
Tuesday.
I said,
Tomorrow's.
I have hazmat here 10 a.m. Wednesday.
You said tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's why we were confused.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wednesday. Thank you.
Historic preservation meets on Saturday morning at 8:30 here. Last week was the Northeast Iowa Workforce Development Board, but it was primarily only just rehash of regulations as it affects different providers and nothing that affects us per se as a county. Nothing changed, just a lot of bureaucracy and paperwork. For a 2-hour Zoom meeting.
I see the state has established new districts for human services and do all of those different things, so. 13 and 7. I haven't got an update from my.
Yeah, they had an app in the Supervisors Gazette last week.
So how that affects us in renting spaces. Has yet to be determined, but it'll be forthcoming.
Since John Halver said this, the generator that we acquired from Calmer is not apparently going to really work here for what we would need at the courthouse building. They want to consider just releasing that to the road department as an option for them to look at, to put onto their main shop. That we did have a disaster having a backup at the main shop, none of the road shops, but the main shop itself. Probably an extra benefit.
That generator won't work if the new building.
It possibly might, but I think that's overkill for what we're looking at.
Well, but if we have it, it saves us money.
We can have that looked at, but I think we need to abandon the idea of trying to use it here.
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
It's not gonna work
It's an obvious way.
I mean, I think we should definitely,
See if it would.
if it would be a building down there, we should use it.
Because if there was a disaster, there's a lot of usable space down there at that building that can be used for housing or warming, cooling, whatever.
Who would be contacted?
I'll contact, the same electrician that John has lined up to take a look at the Smith building in front of the Smith. Excuse me, no. The CSB, so that we can see if that's a possibility.
That could be.
I'll have John look into it and give us.
Considerable savings for what little it's gonna be used. I mean, it's not. Since it's just sitting.
And if it can't handle the whole thing, it might be able to be downsized to certain areas within.
That's possible. But we'll get some answers on that and I'll turn John loose on it.
So today, though, we're gonna have to decide about the one at this meeting.
That's what we want. By the end of this week, we need to know that so that Andy can have Because the goal would be that we would sign a purchase agreement next week. Would approve a purchase agreement with community action. Then we can set a public hearing for the end of the month for the transfer of the property. So that on September 3rd, we could facilitate that transfer. We're running out of time to get the public hearing in if we don't know by the end of this week. But details to put into that purchase agreement.
Can we put an option in there if we don't need that generator?
I mean,
They
that
can
could,
buy it,
we could
I mean-
probably put something like that in, but
just the option that it is, could be if we don't need it.
you want to talk with Andy about how you would word that
That or so, yeah.
to make sure Tricia's okay with that too.
Whatever.
You want to put some kind of a dollar figure on it,
Yeah,
half the value of the generator.
generator or
and so on.
something, yeah.
Any ideas?
I think it's woefully undersized for anything to look at this for. It's not worth
I
anything
think
to
it's
say.
like 20. I don't know, or something, maybe. Yeah.
You can purchase it new for in the range of 6,700.
It's-
That's
2 years.
3 years.
Put it in
2
for
years.
COVID, right?
Yes.
No, it wasn't in before. We just put it in after that last outage we had here, what? Maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago in December, that electric outage. That's when we put it
Because
in.
they had battery. They had battery backed up before that,
Yeah.
and then it was out for such a long time frame that batteries went dead.
That's when we put it in, was after that December outage, when I think it was December that time.
And public health has made it clear they do not need this size generator,
They don't need one.
this generator at all. They don't want this generator.
Well, we're just.
They did not make that comment.
I'm asking.
Cost of moving it is prohibitive.
The cost of moving it is so.
Yeah, the price, she got a price on moving it. I don't recall. The figure was probably.
Around 20,000.
Yeah, wait.
Right now,
That was a whole bunch of other
Other
electrical upgrades.
Just
But I
say
don't
that
know
it's-
what we need.
It can't be 20,000 to move that generator.
Yes, it was that and all the upgrades. That
The
was
generator and other electrical work got done. So that was. That was
right now, it just looks like if we gave Northeast Iowa Community Action a great deal on the generator and left it where it is, it would be a plus for them. Keep us from spending
Could we
a
could put
portion
that-
or remove it.
Yeah,
And check more than this bigger one that you already have. You getting that hooked up down there, and then
There are more chairs up there to pull down. You can sit anywhere in the room.
Because by the time you're paying someone else to remove the one that's there, you could be
Yeah.
paying that toward a new
new
generator
generator.
and leave the other one in place, and everybody would benefit from that.
But part of that moving cost would be rewiring the new place.
Yes,
Yeah.
part of that is, yeah, you're gonna have that
But you're gonna
cost.
have either way.
Either
Yes.
Yeah,
Picking up and moving it can't be that. But it's just, either way, you're gonna have that wiring cost of installation, so it's a little misleading to say we're not gonna have to pay $17,000, because we're probably gonna have to pay $15,000 to get it rewired. No.
That's what we're gonna find out. But I think moving
I
that
think-
out there.
Well, we need to know that
if
before.
we put the clause in there in the sale agreement that if we don't want the generator, they can have it for at 2,500. I mean, just if they could, or if it may not go, it might not
Either
go
way, we
with the
don't want this
property.
generator, so it's
It's not
whatever.
gonna benefit us.
Well, the generator will benefit us, it's just that
It would be.
if we can get battery backup down there cheaper than doing the whole rewiring and all that. That's what I'll talk to Andy and see if we can put a clause in there that talks Trish and we can put a clause in there. Might not.
that way we can get the,
Get
keep
the-
the
get the sale
Smith
done.
transfer on
Get the transfer done.
on
be
the
done.
timeline.
Sounds like we got that figured out. We're into the 10-15 spot. one thing we did get in the mail this week is a letter from Ann Sanzigard from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. She had, took care of foster children back in '70s. And she had, from 75 to 94. She had a diary from the one person that she forgot to send with her parents when they finally came and picked her up, and she's looking for this lady to give her the diary. Anybody with any good ideas?
I submitted to our genealogy, they know, they can scout out where that person might be.
They're good at tracking.
Pardon?
They're good at tracking.
Yeah.
It seems like I'm having a long shot, but I guess that might be our best bet.
So it's directed to Department of Human Services. Maybe we'll start there and suggest that they then could possibly genealogy.
Kind of a different request looks.
I know.
Let's need to take a break.
I'm gonna go over, if I can reach, get John started on that project, if we got 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't be late.
I'm not commenting. Comments, I did.
Six for the 5 board members and myself.
It's almost impossible.
That's very
Saturday.
I think there's a breakdown.
Saturday is raining. I have to prep your mind. So, you get a little more support.
Yeah.
These bullets are gonna come to one side.
Yeah.
Self-conservation.
That's good.
Yeah, that's right.
That's okay. We'll get it done. That's my own call. Yeah.
No, yes.
Purpose didn't schedule anything after this, which is why this got late. So I had to fix it on 2 weeks ago. And you don't know. To make sure we had plenty of time before, that's why we're waiting now, because I didn't know it. Yeah.
Measuring. Monitoring.
I don't want everybody. The camera's over there.
Yeah. Or you start the public hearing, yes, I'll make a receipt. The zoning permit is versus the people realize that.
Since this meeting is actually.
I think it's important. I don't think it's inappropriate. I don't think comments. Most comments need to go out. And that's where they need to be sending those comments. And that's what they don't know. And not even site, they can build the digester here, no matter what you do.
Because that's an extra.
Just the rezoning.
It's the rezoning if I want to.
You already have this. Show up there.
That's what.
So I have a copy.
Yes. And I'll try to explain that. Yeah.
Last time Tony ran it, or at least had control over it, I think, so I can throw it up now or wait for Tony to come in. That's what he said.
Yeah. Okay, good comment.
I know he was coming in to the meeting in a few minutes. Okay. Well, so it reduced the, yeah. So do you want the, it's basically that presentation right there. Do you want that up there or no? What's your thoughts?
May just hold off on. Because this is over the whole digester.
Yeah, this is the same presentation. I was just gonna throw up there. So do this little guy right in there.
And basically, focusing today is the site location of whether it should be zoned. It's not whether a digester
Yep. Okay. I mean, that's not.
I would love
That's doesn't pertain to what we're proposing,
Okay.
because the DNR.
Okay. Well, if there's any desire, yeah, so let us know if you want us to go through the presentation, we can, and if you want to put up there, we can. Pop it up in case you guys want to show it.
How long does it take to go through that? If you were to?
It's 1 month.
And we got, if we can't do that, and keep everybody free, so 3 minutes, we can't. Yeah, I mean, how.
It is. That's the. That's a reason. Explanation.
But, yeah.
Thing is, it's just gonna bring in a lot of questions.
That's been heard, that's suggested.
That's not our, that's the DNR.
That's a issue.
That's the DNR, that's that. So.
Dealing with.
When people stand up to speak, you have them state their names so that.
You'd be the timekeeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you should give them 2 to 3 minutes.
Just not on. It's not very far. Yeah. Close, yeah. Right. You see it.
When you talk about C&D, will you try to include in that also? Is there anything that you may be able to find for emergency services for the courthouse building? Being able to put a generator to see if the treasurer's office is down and Ben's office is down. And that's where a standby generator in case of an emergency. And then the court. On that case, I don't think that's going to be an issue.
So also check to see which grant money for the courthouse.
A lot of water. A lot of generator. Yeah. Keep the house functioning because you can't call it an emergency. The other issue that we're use grant money was can we get grant money to get a more efficient air conditioning system into the aging systems over the CSD? There was out there for generator over here and there for two different reasons. This was to keep the government going. Shelter option, perhaps. Be a- One of Sean may know some of you can sort of sense.
See what conversations he's had.
Oh.
It was down both, I was.
You think she's out?
I know they do, and I don't know which one, which seems to be. Have you seen what down there, have you seen that, the children, what they're doing down there? And what they're doing right now, and you really, and start to show off. And if they get that last stretch, the turn off and Ford itself, which is pretty narrow. But there was homeowners there, nice mowed yards all the way up to the road.
You were talking. You were at 30 of the stop sign.
I think that, but I don't.
I think
That's the official now. But it's, you know, and you see the edge rattlings in there, the rest of it. What they've done out there on the other, turn off to a school building. They make great progress.
Walmart.
Yeah, that would be nice. I don't know if it would be nice for farming.
I do not.
I used to. Government economy, you see it.
Big old white barn.
It's hard to see the sort of-
that's one nice thing.
Yeah.
I mean, 14 September.
Originally, build.
That's
Bill built before.
Have they made any?
Yeah.
Comment yet? Well, that would be better because it would pulling rockets out of that forest down 16 directions. I'm going to school where the water project is.
Before we start the public hearing, I was really confused about what this action and today is about. And so I didn't understand. So I talked with Tony and Doug Brew, our sanitarian. The construction of the biodigester is not what's the rezoning is. The construction of the biodigester is applied through the DNR. We got notice as the county last week that they've applied to the DNR to construct the biodigester. So this board's action today won't approve or prohibit the construction of that digester. So if you have comments about the digester, there will be a public notice. It'll be in the newspaper of where you need to send those comments and when the deadline is to the DNR, because they're the ones who will approve the digester. This board is deciding whether they can, if the digester is built, whether they can process and refine the gases that are put out by the digester on that, at this location. So that's what the zoning is for, is the processing and refining the gases. It's not the building of the digester is an agricultural use, so that's in the purview of the DNR. So you want to be sure, if you have comments about that, that you get them sent to the DNR. That's who issued that permit.
And on top of that, it goes along with the added manure, if there is any, or increase in herd sizes, all that goes back to the DNR.
Yeah.
We have no ability to put any stipulations on any of that.
A wise person once told me that they compared this to if they had their dairy operation, which is approved by the DNR, if they wanted to put a cheese factory there to make the milk and the cheese, then they would need to have it rezoned because they're producing something else. So that's the same with this. If the digester gets built, do we want to allow a zoning to process the gases to produce natural gas for use? Or it can be built either way if the DNR issues a permit. So this board is trying to decide if they want to allow additional uses on that property for the agricultural commodities that are being produced.
But Ben, isn't it, what if the discussion of the digester has to do with the zoning change?
It doesn't.
Excuse me.
They can be issued a permit to build the digester, no matter what this board does today.
Not if they haven't had a rezone.
Yeah? Yes, that's my understanding.
Well, we'll get into the public hearing.
So the construction digester cannot be regulated by this board because it's an agricultural use. That's what we were told. They've applied to the DNR, at least they filed the paperwork with the DNR to build the digester.
DNR told me that there hasn't been any application.
No, they just did it towards the end of last week. They sent the paperwork to me that I forwarded to the board that they're getting their application put together, and that's going to the DNR. And there'll be a public notice about that, probably this week or next.
So if we have something to say about that,
You need to send it to the DNR
you're not
because
going to listen to it?
We have no.
Yes, we will.
No,
we-
no.
You're not the chairman, Shirley.
We will not, because we have no power over that.
I have a
We
question.
can only discuss what we can regulate.
I have a question. Can they process the gas from a biodigester without an M2
no.
rezoning?
So what matters is if the DNR approves the permit, build the biodigester, then and you'd have to ask them, if you do not rezone it, do they ship that gas somewhere else to get processed, or do they just release it into the air, or what? They could still build the biodigester, they just couldn't process the gas there, and that's what you may want to ask them what their plan is.
So that's why this public hearing does matter,
Yes.
and we do need to hear from
Yes.
people because they do
Yes.
need an M2.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they don't need an M2 to build the biodigester. What I'm saying is they need the M2 if you want them to process the gas there. If your comment is strictly about building a biodigester, you need to be sure to send that to the DNR. That's what I'm trying to tell you is they can't regulate that, approve or deny the construction of biodigester. That needs to go to the DNR. So if you have comments about that, you should be sure to send those to the DNR at some point.
In addition to today.
Yeah.
All right. Next up is the public hearing for the Storlie Bohr normal rezoning.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Public hearing is now open. When you get up to say something, I need you to state your name so Ben can document it. I'll give you 2 to 3 minutes. And as we're just going over this meeting, public hearing is for the zoning of the site location only. Nothing to do with manure, nothing to do with herd size, or the digester. It's our water quality because it doesn't
We
apply.
have freedom of speech. So.
You have anything to add, Tony? We pretty much get that all?
I'm Tony Phillips, planning and zoning guy.
The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on this, then they came back next week later to vote on it. The motion was to approve the application as requested, and it failed by a vote of 2 to 4. I have sent notices out for this public hearing to the 2 official newspapers of the county, and I sent letters back out to the same adjoining landowners. That is all I have.
All right, anyone have any comments? Go ahead,
Yeah, so is this where I can publicly speak and read my comments?
state your name first.
Justin Jefferson?
Go ahead.
Okay, so specifically with regard to the processing of the gas, I recognize that the anaerobic digestion of animal waste is a technology that may offer benefits, many such as renewed energy production or waste reduction, but I'm very concerned that there are several issues that should delay the implementation of this technology at this time. I'm a chemist, I'm a PhD chemist, I'm particularly concerned with the details regarding the biogas production, specifically what we're here to talk about. First of all, there's a great deal of variability in methane content among the biogas that will be generated, and this has a big impact on its proposed usage and energy sources. It's not clear to me that the current plan includes the type of additional treatments that would be required to meet the specifications for the use in our current energy system. So I'm saying you're going to make the gas and then you have a plan to use it, but I'm not sure that those two things line up.
Excuse me,
I'm not convinced.
we're not here to determine whether the process that the digester is going to have is worthy of putting in the pipeline or not.
Well, it was my understanding that the documentation would convince us that it was. And my question is that the documentation doesn't meet those requirements.
That we should refer to the engineer that's designed.
We're not referring to any of that documentation.
Can I continue?
Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, secondly, the biogas production will contain many impurities such as hydrogen sulfide gas and ammonia gas, both of which are very difficult to remove and can cause corrosive damage to equipment as well as deleterious health effects. The statement in the executive summary, which states that the biogas will be processed into pipeline quality natural gas and injected into nearby pipeline, is not well supported or documented. The statement in the Winneshiek County Planning and Zoning Commission statement, which states that the biogas goes into biogas upgrading plant through a membrane that separates the gases, is again not well supported or documented. Thank you.
The engineer may want to respond to that.
Yes, Mark Hill, co-CEO of Novilla RNG. We're the parent company of Walnut Creek RNG. I've done 15 of these projects. As Novilla, we have 2 operating, 2 being commissioned right now. The 2 operating projects use dairy manure, one's in Wisconsin, one's in Michigan. They achieved 98% on-stream rate last month. They're getting pipeline quality, injecting for 98% of the month. The impurities, hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, we test below 1 part per million. There's not a lot of ammonia. The nitrogen actually stays with the manure in this case. But the membranes themselves separate the carbon dioxide and the water, and then what's left over is methane. We then send the methane through a polisher, which uses H2S media to polish it, and then it's got a dehydration system on it using temperature swing absorption media that takes out the water. We have our own gas chromatographs, we have our own flow meters, H2S sensors, water sensors, and the pipeline has theirs as well. So both of us are checking before it goes in. If we're not meeting pipeline quality spec, it shuts down. We would not be spending tens of millions of dollars on this if we were not using equipment that's been proven and we're running right now at sites across the country. Those sites have not received any NOVs and have exceeded our expectations for on-stream rate.
Can you tell us what kind of membrane it is that separates the carbon dioxide from the methane?
Not as pertinent to what we're here to do.
Yes. It has nothing.
Stop censoring the public at a public
I'm
hearing.
not censoring the public.
He
I'm
just-
trying to get to
Stop.
what I'm trying
He
to.
just spoke to the technicalities of the project. So that opened that up to the technicalities of the project. It has bearings on this rezoning or processing gas. That's the conversation that just happened. So I think it's okay for a follow-up to just clarify. So
One
the
quick
engineer has the
follow-up, and
opportunity.
that's it.
What's the nature of the membrane?
Yeah, it's polymer membranes. If you're opening them up, they're 6 inches wide. They look like bundles of spaghetti. They're made by a Japanese company named Ube, UBE. And basically we pressurize the gas using an electric screw compressor. Gas goes in, it goes into these tubes. Outside the tubes, it actually acts as a molecular sorter based on the density of the gas. So certain gases are heavier or bigger than others. And so some will permeate through the sidewalls and some will go straight through. The ones that go straight through are CO2, water, and hydrogen sulfide. Methane, which is natural gas that we want, will permeate through the sidewall if we capture that and put it into the line. So we're doing it right. It works.
Anyone else?
Turn back to normal stuff. I'm Mike Steik. I'm a resident of Winneshiek County. And I do think the county supervisors have the right to talk about stuff like this in terms of water quality, animals, manure, or drinking water, because this does affect it. If you rezone it, it's going to change things. They're up in numbers. Yes, we got to go to DNR, but you guys can do something about it before it even gets to DNR. The next thing that's going to happen here is this stuff, they're going to put it into a pipeline. When is it not big enough? They're going to need another pipeline. Then you're going to have eminent domain. We found out in the rest of the state that we thought we weren't going to have eminent domain for CO2 pipelines. Look at what they're doing. You guys can stop this from the get-go and not allow it to happen. Let's not rezone this for our water quality, for our livelihood, and our rights as citizens to be able to drive down the road and not choke on the odors that are happening out there. Drinking water, nitrates, bacteria, other diseases in our water quality because of that. Not enough land to apply all the manure from all those animals. It is very pertinent to you guys as county supervisors. You lead this county. Let's try and lead it for all the citizens of this county, not just a couple to make money off some carbon credits for a gas pipeline that's going through. That money doesn't stay in Winneshiek County. It goes elsewhere. We live here. We have the right to clean air and clean water. Thanks for your time and allowing me to comment.
If I may, I'm gonna go back to the farming deal. We as farmers, I'm one of myself, and these guys out here doing the hog, the cattle, they are going above and beyond to do their job, to put that manure where it needs to be. We're doing a better job than we were 50 years ago. I know that for a fact, because we haul the manure the closest field from the farm.
I would agree with that.
We are there.
We still have poor water quality. We still have the same problems that still occur.
Well,
So we all need to work together to do a better job. And you guys as
Attorney
supervisors.
does not have the
can
floor.
help do that.
Supervisor Vic has the floor.
I was giving a talk, and I'm just commending the farm. They are doing their due diligence out there to do their best job to put the manure where it should be. We're doing a way better job than we were 40 years ago. I can guarantee you that.
Let's get back to the zoning request here. Do we have anyone else with any public comment on the zoning request?
So I understand.
State your name.
Excuse me. My name's Chris Jones. I understand the issues regarding the rezoning, what is responsibility of DNR, what's responsibility of the supervisors. But to just for the supervisors to just wash their hands of the consequences that will result from a favorable decision on the biogas generation is sort of cowardly, right? We know what's going to happen. And so to just wash your hands of these
expected circumstances just isn't right. As far as the manure being handled better than 40 years ago, well, I certainly hope so. I mean, everything we do in this country is better than what we did 40 years ago, right? But that doesn't mean that it's perfect. And DNR data shows that 356 out of 1,452 wells in Winneshiek County have elevated nitrate. Another 607
Excuse me.
found with coliform bacteria is 220.
The zoning.
Look, is there free speech here or not? Am I allowed to give my remarks without interruption?
No, actually you aren't if I choose that you will not speak.
What, you choose? You choose whether people can speak as they wish here at this meeting? That's your
I am in
decision.
charge of this meeting.
Really?
I will let you speak as long as what you're talking about has to do with the zoning request.
Okay, let's talk about the zoning request. If you
Wells
approve-
have
if
nothing to do with the zoning.
request Is approved, it makes the biogas generation economically viable. Okay, without the biogas generation, these digesters are not economically viable.
I would agree.
And so, okay, so in essence, you just said, in essence, you're approving the digester by approving the zoning request. And so thank you for making my point for me.
Not a clerk.
And so if the digester, if the zoning request is approved, the digester is constructed, there are environmental consequences to that. And we see in the Kueny Peninsula of Wisconsin, very common place for these digesters to be. 60% of the private wells on the Kueny Peninsula in Wisconsin are contaminated with coliform bacteria. Okay, and so when we approve these things, we enable the industry to expand, and that has consequences for the residents of the county.
Would you agree with me? That the manure is gonna be there whether there's a digester or not.
No, absolutely not. There'll be more manure. There will be more. There will be more.
Because they're gonna expand.
The DNR has full authority over any expansions and what happens with the manure.
So
Whether
again,
there's a digester or not there, the cattle are still there, the manure is still going to be there, correct?
I understand that you
Correct?
don't have the courage to not pass the.
Am I correct? Thank
They
you for
will
your
expand.
comment.
The digesters in the Kueny Peninsula.
Next,
have a question.
And I think.
we don't talk, Shirley.
No, I want to just take a pause and have everybody take.
You're not in charge of this
I'm
meeting.
just trying
Shirley.
to calm it down.
Mr. Chair,
It's calm.
point of order.
Hey, Dan,
Next,
hey, Dan, why don't you just cool down a little bit?
No,
man?
yeah.
I'm fine.
You're not the boss here.
Kevin,
I have,
I am the chairman of the board. Is my duty to make sure what goes on in here is the way it should go on.
It's a public meeting.
It is.
but it's still controlled by the
Kevin?
chairman of the board of supervisors.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, thank you. I'm Kevin Lee from Freeport. My little bit of background in this sort of situation with digesters is that I was an environmental technician for Rhinelander Paper Companies in northern Wisconsin. And did quite a few samplings and testings of waters. And their digestion system was an aerobic, not anaerobic digestion system. So it's a little different than anaerobic. My main concerns here is that having been on the Fire Protection Association board for Winneshiek County, I'm quite confident that our emergency systems are not capable to control a large incident or accident at the digester site. Extra equipment and specialized training would be needed to cover all the bases of potential problems. These expenses will be covered by our taxpayer dollars. And as a representative from the digester manufacturing said, when questioned if our emergency systems would get compensated by the firm, he said, taxes will take care of that. That was this gentleman here. And the industry complexes, this industrial complex is much more than digester site itself. The complex involves investors, high technologies, too complex for the average individual to comprehend. Vertical integration of several corporations and advancement of big industry in small rural neighborhood. Once the site is installed, there will be room for more and more, none of which will enhance our local economies very much. And I'll shorten my time for speech, but I'd love to put this into several pages on safety, including cancer and so forth from the Iowa Cancer Consortium, and put that on the record for me. Thank you.
Your county engineer on the issue part. I'd like to hear from the engineer to address them.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Will be voted you as saying something. You have the right for a rebuttal if you want.
Yeah, and so during the planning and zoning committee meeting, you asked us a question. How do we work with local townships, local first responders, to make sure that if there's an incident that we're ready for? Okay. Every project we do a walkthrough with first responders. Okay. We want them to be familiar with what's going on at the site. We want to know where the electrical equipment is. We put little signs saying, hey, this is areas to put water, and you don't want to put water because if you have electrical equipment, you don't want to do that. In general, what the first responders have to have is what's called an SCBA, and that'd be only if there's a hydrogen sulfide. That's the same equipment that you'll see them wearing as they go into the fire. It's got the almost looks like a scuba tank with a big mask over the front. We have different alarms on the sites that say what is the problem with the site. By the way, this has not happened at any of our sites. I just want to make that clear. But you plan for the best, hope plan for the worst, hope it's best, right? So when we do these walkthroughs, we also put emergency stops everywhere. There's one for first responders that's outside of kind of the main plant area. And so if a first responder or the dairy or whoever was to show up to one of these sites, there would be a button that says first responder shutdown, and that will default the plant to a fail-safe position. I'm not sure where the claims about cancer are coming from, to be quite frank. The nitrogens, so the emissions we have that are coming out of the digester, the gas emissions, okay? We have to go through air testing on it, okay? And by the way, we're not producing any new gas. I have a presentation I can reference if you, it's up to you if you want.
Well, let me just ask people in the audience, would you like to see the 20-minute presentation or not?
You can go to the webinar and watch it if you want. I watched it yesterday.
Yeah, what is this from the planning and zoning meeting?
No, it's from your website.
Oh, so I've done webinars on my website. This is
And
more general.
8 out of 22 in the United States are carbon neutral.
That's not what it says. We're planning on.
That's on your webinar, sir.
Hold on here. I was just asking if the people in the audience want to see a 20-minute presentation from them.
No.
They don't want to.
Okay.
Okay. In any case, the hydrogen sulfide and methane are already coming out of lagoons. The whole point on this process is right now manure goes into a lagoon. Hot day like this goes through anaerobic digestion. That methane and hydrogen sulfide goes up in the air and causes global warming. Methane is 28 times the greenhouse gas that normal as CO2 would be. And instead of this methane and hydrogen sulfide going in the air, we capture it, we process it, we use it for a beneficial purpose. In terms of what is coming out of, we have two pollution control devices on here. One's a flare, one's a thermal oxidizer. Both of those have to get tested by the Iowa DNR. They also test for any of these things like nitrous oxide or things like that. We have passed at all our sites with flying colors on these. They are the gold standard of pollution control. And so right now you already have at any agricultural facility, all these gases being emitted in the air. So when you drive by a swine farm or a dairy farm, and you get that rotten egg smell, or you go into your septic system, you get that rotten egg smell, that's hydrogen sulfide. We're not emitting that anymore. And I have letters as part of the presentation, if people don't want, but the areas that we worked with, I have letters of attestation that local citizens have come up to them and asked, why is your dairy not smelling anymore? And this happened right after we started putting this manure into a digester.
Minutes are up.
I can stop. So yeah. So again, we're not here to expand dairy farms. I'm not a dairy farmer. We're not here to create more pollution. Our own employees work at these sites. We're not here to create problems with the wells. In fact, our digesters, they are putting them in Kueny County, Wisconsin with the karst geography because it sets you up for doing additional nutrient recovery and the pathogen kill. You have a higher pathogen kill on E. coli bacteria. There's a reason why places like Europe, Denmark, 45% of their natural gas production comes from this stuff. Okay, the Europeans are not anti-land, they're not for pollution. They are encouraging people to do this. And I don't want this to turn into like we're here to create more manure and more gas and more pollution. It's the exact opposite. And that's the whole business model of our company.
May I respond?
Go ahead.
I wondered, through this, does the digestate actually have a nitrate that goes back to the farmer? Okay, so this whole process doesn't remove nitrate.
No.
That's essentially where you're asking about the cancer component with the coalition. That's one of their hierarchies in cancer causing agents in Iowa, which is like the second worst in the whole country. So I guess I would like to see the public being, led differently, that this is removing a lot of cancer causing agents or chemistry that's harmful to the environment. This is pretty much a venture to make money off of gas from manure, right? Is that what
it is a business that we reduce greenhouse gas emissions and create a usable fuel for people to use. And just in terms of what that is, it's the energy equivalent of about 27 homes heated. Okay, that's replacing gas coming out of the ground. It's the energy equivalent of 1.5 million gallons a year produced. It's a greenhouse gas removal of over 10,000 cars coming off the roads. So
no, if you want to wrap it up.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, we're replacing geological natural gas. And we are creating energy right here in Iowa. That energy has a carbon intensity of -200. To give you an idea, the US electric grid, when you plug in your iron at your house, it's positive 120. Gasoline is positive 95. Solar and wind are 0. We are -200. We are reversing greenhouse gases. We are reducing bacterial contamination, and we're reducing odors. And we have testaments from farmers, from state agencies saying that we've passed with flying colors all our testing. And we have had no odor complaints, no safety issues at any of our sites.
One more.
Make it real quick.
Okay, it's real quick. There's 5 million gallons of manure that will be put into, I know I'm not supposed to talk about digester, but 5 million gallons of manure is a lot. And there's been proven that, maybe not through your organization, but in Europe, that there have been ruptures and many other, which I specify in my document to the supervisors. What kind of protections or emergency plan would you have for a total rupture of the system? Where would the food go? That's what I'm trying to say. And also the pipelines coming in from the Muller is underground and it crosses over an area which is flood prone, as on the DNR proposed mapping.
Okay. Kevin.
Yeah, that's enough. Thank you. I'm happy to talk afterwards.
Yeah. It's just that we're not going over the manure part of it. Okay. The manure is there. It's gonna be there whether any of this other stuff is there. Second,
I just want to correct what he said. We're not promoting more dairies. One of the webinars, he shows the more the cows, he says, of 10 cows, the 10,000 first cow is a lot more valuable than the first cow. So you are promoting bigger dairies, and you have got to get to big dairy to get to the 200 carbon thing. The small ones don't have that.
Yeah, I couldn't be just at 100 cow there.
Huh?
There's economies of scale.
But I mean, you are promoting bigger dairies.
No, I'm doing.
Then read your webinar. Your webinar says it. It shows the bigger 2,500, 5,000, or 10,000, the profitability.
Yep.
But you're promoting bigger dairies.
so just saying.
I have a comment I'd like to make.
Oh,
It was interesting that I read as I was thinking through this whole process. I came across an article from the University of California, Davis, dated January 6, 2023. And it's titled, you can find it online, it's a summary of the United Nations FAO methane emissions in livestock and rice systems. And in it, the quotation is this: more substantial methane emissions reductions provide a mechanism to lower the global temperature and thus may be an important contributor towards achieving the Paris temperature reduction goal. So in general, what they're saying is that biodigestion and conversion to methane, which is a technology that's been around for 50 years and improving, has benefit in global climate change. And it reduces what is methane gas just going up and taking 12 years to degrade in the atmosphere down to putting it back into a pipeline to be put into commercial use and public benefit.
I have a question, just a procedural question. In public hearings, normally the public speaks. We don't as supervisors. The public is to be heard, and then we discuss it in our time to discuss. I'd like to stick to that protocol.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jim LaRue. I'm an attorney. I practice in park environment law, main offices in Iowa City, but my wife and I own residential property up in the northern part of the county. A few weeks ago, I had a birthday party. I invited friends from all around the country, and to lure them, I said, it's the most beautiful place on earth in May. And they came and they shared that view, but they also did not drink the water. It was not drinkable safely. They had bottled water. You have a problem in this county, the most beautiful place on earth, with water that is deteriorating. And it's your zoning ordinances, whether you talk about the comprehensive smart plan, which Iowa law requires you to have, and you have an excellent one, or the zoning ordinance, which must comply with the smart plan, doesn't talk about the board of supervisors reducing the rate of deteriorating water. It talks about improving the quality of water. I'm legal counsel to a newly formed group, Water Defenders, Journalist Water Defenders. We held our first meeting here about 6 weeks ago. We have 100 members now. 200 people came to that meeting. And you have a growing movement of people who believe it's a civil right to have access to clean water. The materials that this organization, which is a profit-making group of investors, let's recognize it for what it is, has a proclamation of all of these things that it will achieve. Nowhere does it say that it will improve the quality of your water. That would be a misstatement of truth. And the statement that Chris Jones said, empirically, we can show that where digesters have been used, the quality of the water deteriorates. And why is it? Because a digester increases the quantity of livestock nearby. It does nothing to the residual nitrate infused manures, which have to be spread somewhere. And when they're spread too thickly, more than the corn can absorb, it goes into the water supply. And that's what's happening here. Things are improving generally, maybe, as some people have attested, but not the quality of your water. It's getting worse. This proceeding is subject to the minimum protections that citizens have: notice and an opportunity to be heard. The notice has been so garbled, one wonders whether this meeting itself is legitimate or not. We were told at the onset of the meeting that which was noticed, is not what we're going to talk about. The materials we were allowed to review, prepare for the public meeting, are ones that the chair says are now inapplicable. And what we have in terms of opportunity to be heard are scales that are so unbalanced, and they will be obvious in any reasonable review of this proceeding. Citizens are strictly taught by example that they have 2 minutes if that. The company has unlimited amounts of time to respond. Citizens are told that they're not to comment on the technicalities.
But he has been answering questions that the public has been
He has
asking.
been given a long commercial in favor of the technology that citizens are concerned about. Finally, this proceeding was noticed as the law requires before you amend the zoning ordinance. What is the specific of the meeting? And then when we're told it's for a change to a new zoning ordinance, we're told we're not to talk about the technology. The very zoning provision that these folks want to amend to include to be zoned as M2 specifically states that buildings or structures authorized in this district, that is the M2, shall not become a source of water pollution or contamination. So when citizens in good faith respond to a notice concerned from what they read that digesters such as this end up with residuals and manures filled with nitrates that this technology has nothing to do with, to be spread on their water, on their ground in amounts that are much more than corn can absorb, it will go into their water system. Where but at a proceeding like this can citizens stand up and say, stop it? Obey the sentiment and the purpose of your zoning ordinance. Don't make this mistake. Mr. Chairman, I've had more than my 2 minutes, but that's an exception. And I would urge you to give respect to the citizens who responded to a notice, who wish to be heard. A chairman of a board of supervisors is not a dictator.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Does does it increase the nitrates in the manure?
No, it's not.
Okay.
All that's happening is instead of the manure going to the lagoon, the manure goes into our digester, stays there for about 20 days. We stir it, we heat it, we don't add anything to it. And little bacteria are eating away at the leftover energy coming out of the cow. And that gas comes off. That's the same gas that was coming off in the lagoon.
My point was that the manure is there, it has the nitrates in it. If the process doesn't increase it, the nitrates are still going to be spread onto the ground. That the state allows through the DNR.
I want to clarify, I wasn't trying to comment about what should or shouldn't be said in the public hearing. I just want people to know that will have a comment period with the DNR, because they will also be accepting comments on the digester. So
I don't want to be misunderstood. My statement was not that the facility would increase the amount of nitrate on a particular cow's poop. My statement was, and empirically it shows, take the Green Bay area that Mr. Dunn was talking about or others, that the digesters working on an economy of scale result in increased populations of cattle, would result in increased amounts of manures that are filled with the nitrates that's poisonous. Thank you.
Donna?
Donna Rasmussen, I'm probably walking in lion's den here a little bit on the popular side. I was one of the ones that voted for the rezoning on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I thought I should maybe speak up here a little bit about my reasons for that. And I understand the difficulties with separating the rezoning issue from our quality issue, manure, various different size, things like that. And it was a very difficult in our discussions to maintain that separation. But I think the things that I fell back on were that this particular site is the natural gas line goes through that site. And so in many ways, it's ideal for this type of an operation, because you're putting the natural gas right into the pipeline on site. As Steve mentioned, methane capture is a huge part of climate change mitigation. Several states, including Minnesota and Wisconsin, have it as part of their state plans for capturing methane and it's also part of our EPA, or I'm not sure if EPA, but the Biden administration plan for climate change mitigation. The Dan said, manure is already there. It's in an open lagoon right now, releasing methane and other gases into the atmosphere directly. I worked in the water quality field in Minnesota, Fillmore County, Minnesota, which is a highly karsted area. And so I'm very familiar with the water quality concerns. But when you have manure in an underground storage facility of any type, either a pit or a lagoon, you have very real concerns about leaks from those facilities. And so by moving the manure into an above ground digester, I feel you have better capability to detect leaks. See if there is any escape from that. And on that particular site, again, your drainage is away from Cardinal Marsh. The drainage goes from the northwest corner of the site to the southeast corner to a grassed waterway onto the next property. So you're not, I don't believe you'd be impacting part of Cardinal Marsh. The other aspect of that is from that property line to the creek is about a half a mile. There's currently a grassed waterway in place there for filtering. And since the water quality issue has been brought up, I'm allowed to speak to that. The digestate that goes back to the lagoon, if I understand correctly, and from what I've read online from Iowa State studies and other studies, the nitrogen and phosphorus content of that digestate is pretty uniformly consistent. Is that what I understand? Nitrate contamination from manure is usually because of the nitrates leaching through the ground, the soil profile into the groundwater. And due to over application, because you're putting out more than the plants need in some cases. With mixed manure that has solids in it, you have a much more inconsistent formula there. And so oftentimes manure is over applied because you're trying to apply enough to ensure that the plants have enough nutrients. And sometimes the manure has enough and sometimes it doesn't. If you're putting a more consistent product on land, you remove that uncertainty. And so you can apply more at an agronomic rate that the plants can use. So these were the reasons that I felt that this particular operation was, the benefits outweighed the risks in my mind. And so that's why I voted the way I did. So thank you.
Just a second.
Mary Hoffman, I was the other person who voted to recommend the zoning change. And it surprises me in this county that we seem to be so gung-ho with our solar projects and our wind projects that this is just another great renewable energy project that we could help facilitate by the zoning change. And so I thought it was better for the county rather than worse for the county. I don't see it as an increase in possible water problems any more than the dairy farms that are already there. And so there we go.
Just response to her, she's saying about where the runoff's gonna be, the runoff's gonna be through my land, and would she want that next to her house, the runoff going through your land?
I didn't catch your name.
Cheryl Muller.
Thank you, Cheryl.
And the runoff she's talking about is gonna be going through mine. But yet, would you want to go through your land if they're so safe?
That's kind of an unfair question.
It's what?
It's kind of an unfair question.
I don't voting this.
excuse me. I don't think anybody wants runoff going through theirs, but it's my
So it's not
product.
approved, yeah,
It's
been
my
going through
product.
nobody.
It's running downstream from anything. Oh.
Tim Wagner, I live here in Cora. Kevin, can you? This thing I'm passing out right here. This was released just last week in DNR. Shows 17 beaches or state parks in the state that are now closed because of E. coli. Every one of them. Every one of them. I follow this, I've been following it for 4 years. Every year the number goes up. The discussion here that concerns me is we're doing piecemeal versus looking at the big picture. Reason we have some serious water quality problems in the state of Iowa right now is because of too much livestock. That's E. coli. That's not coming from fertilizer. That's E. coli. It's coming from manure. It's runoff. We currently have 25 million hogs in the state and almost 6 million head of cattle. In some form, either beef operations or dairy operations. And yes, this project, if it's approved by the DNR, will increase the size of the herds. Yeah, it will. I've done a lot of research, various projects just like this around the country. And that is one of the overarching themes that you read and hear about. Because carbon credits is a lucrative market. In order to get carbon credits, you need to produce a lot more gas and capture a lot more of it. Yeah, it will facilitate more cattle on the land up there. Yeah, I realize that this is a P&Z issue, it's not a DNR issue. But again, it goes back to either piecemeal or a big picture. What we do here today affects what happens to the residents of Winneshiek County 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. And I'm sorry, Mark Vick, yeah, farmers are great. I grew up on a farm, grew a lot of livestock, but we didn't have 20 million, 25 million head of hogs in the state back then. Now we're putting way too much waste on the ground, way more than that soil can accommodate. And when that happens, where's it gonna go? Runs into the tile, goes into the creeks, or it runs off the surface, goes into the creeks and lakes. That's why we have this problem on the sheet I handed out today. And it's only gonna get worse. At what point can we as the public and our elected officials say, well, maybe we need to take a step back here. Let's take a big picture look and see what we're doing and how it's going to affect the residents of the county 20 years from now. That's my concern.
Tim?
Thank you.
John?
We've been talking a lot about water pollution, but as I read, have a growing problem with certain areas overdrawing their water accounts. We really have to think about where the water that we need is going to come from. Is it inexhaustible? Some places it isn't. So I think that we take for granted this endless supply of water that we think we have here in this state. I'm not so sure that it is. In fact, I think that the northwest part of the state is going to really have problems in the near future if they aren't already now. So I think that we need to measure the water we have. We need to monitor how it's used, and we need to be better at managing how we use it. Thank you. My name is Steve Basie. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
Okay.
I didn't think you were going to say your name.
Oh, and I live in Ames, but I fished up here in Northeast Iowa for almost 40 years, at least. I'm from chemist, worked at Iowa State University until I retired for 42 years.
did a lot of work as a volunteer on water quality standards in this state. And that's one of the reasons we now have a category called Tier 2.5 waters. Those are known to you as outstanding Iowa waters. And you have a bunch of them here in Winneshiek County. But my remarks are directly pertain to the aspirations, the comprehensive plan, and water quality be preserved. I'm a bit nervous, okay?
It's okay.
So livestock produce significant quantities of uncaptured methane, but that's primarily through belching and farting. And in fact, manure as excreted doesn't have much methane in it. So depending on how the manure is handled, more or less methane can result. So the gentleman said that we're going to use replace geological natural gas, which comes from fracking in the petroleum industry, with a methane, biorenewable methane. If you digested every bit of agricultural manure in the country, you would impact that by 3%. That's all. So no, this is not about reducing or replacing methane that comes from sequestered carbon. Now I've submitted 8 or 9 pages of comments, and I'm unclear of the protocol. I want to know for sure that my comments are going to be included, my written comments, in the official record. Is that the case?
Yes.
I will keep all written comments in the official record.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I would encourage you, if they are pertaining to the digester itself, to also send them to the DNR when that process is that's in the process.
If there are members of the media here, I have extra copies of my comments. I'm going to drop, I cover a lot of things in these comments. I'm going to drop a bit of a bombshell here. Supervisor Vick mentioned that farmers do a better job at handling their manure than they used to, and I'm not disputing they do that. But this idea that they are actually meeting the requirements of Chapter 65 through their manure management plans, that's false. That's not happening. These manure management plans, as written and as reviewed by DNR, are not meeting the requirements of Chapter 65. And I spent probably 4 pages in here discussing that. And the 2 particular plans, KG for dairy and for Bohr dairy, I list at least 9 bullet points in detail where they are, in my opinion. You always have to say, in my opinion, so you don't get sued. Isn't that right? I think so. So, in my opinion, they are not meeting the requirements of properly constructed and implemented manure management plan. And you say, well, how can that happen? Because I've reviewed a lot of manure management plans in Northeast Iowa, mostly in Clayton County. And virtually none of them actually meet the requirements of Chapter 65. They're over applying manure. They're applying more manure on fields that should not even receive manure in this area of highly erodible land. And there's a lot of different ways that they do this when they're completing their manure management plans. But manure management plans are not technically reviewed by DNR. That's an aberration. Manure management plans are giving an administrative review that makes sure that there's everything in a checkbox that's supposed to be in a checkbox. They never check the truth or validity of the statements that are made in those plans. They don't do that unless there's enormous public interest or litigation. Now, boards of supervisors, yes, the state legislature has removed your authority to prevent a manure plan from being approved. You don't have that authority. But they did not remove your standing to review plans after they have been received by DNR during the approval process or after they're approved. You have standing. You are here to protect the water quality in this county. If those plans are not being properly reviewed, and if they contain information that's false or misleading or incorrect, and the result is the P-index thresholds are not being properly evaluated, and manure is being spread in amounts that it should not be spread on fields that are too highly sloped and eroded, and they should not be spread, you folks have standing to challenge DNR to do a better job. You folks can be watchdogs of these plans And if in your heart of hearts, which I do not know, I respect everyone there. I do not know what's in your heart. If in your heart you believe for Winneshiek County, we really need to be careful about expanding CAFOs and limiting the amount of industrialized concentrated agriculture. If that's what you believe, do not pretend you don't have a way to accomplish that goal, because you do. If you take your heads out of the sand and take a look at these plans, you can, if you challenge DNR on a plan, you have standing. They cannot refuse to listen to what you say. So I just wanted to make that point, and I'm sorry if I got a little bit excited, but I appreciate it.
Same that you emailed us?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Yeah. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I'm Myron Phillips. I live probably a mile or so away from where this is all going to happen, so it's in our neighborhood. We're in the same neighborhood. My ones are basically just direct questions as a resident. The first one would be, when we talk about emergency services being capable of responding, we sort of heard the beginning of that plan, but we never heard if there was an active discussion between EMS and the company, and what the result of that was, whether they would consider themselves prepared. That's my first thing. The second one is through.
Okay.
The second one would be, heard mention of the pipeline and going through someone's property. I don't know if if there is a map available today to show where these pipes are supposed to go through and where they end. And if there's a proposal, if they need to be extended. So basically, what are the limitations of these pipelines, where they're going to place? And the third one is regarding these plans submitted to DNR, is what is the board's proposal for reviewing those plans from DNR? How will you review those plans, and will we be committed? Oh, I'm sorry, real quickly on the EMS one, if in the unlikely event there's a catastrophic leak, you said worst case scenario. As neighbours, how do we get notified of that? Does it have to be reported to us, even if it's a minor leak? So what's the process for telling the public if something's happened? That should not have happened. That wasn't expected to happen.
You want to address a couple of those?
Yeah, sure. Jared Williams, co-CEO of Novilla as well. So Mark and I have been working together for 15 years. So yeah, those are all great questions and actually good things to talk about. So as we go through this process, we'll meet with all of the first responders. We usually invite them out to the facility. We show them everything that we are doing at the facility, make sure that they're aware of any hazards that they might encounter if they were to show up.
And after the facility's been approved?
It's during the process. So this is all kind of a little bit of a chicken or the egg, right? We wouldn't go to them right now and talk through this until we had approval here. And so once we get approval and start the process, we want to make sure they know what our facilities are, how they operate, what we do. And then we partner with them. So then we invite them to come out every year. We actually do kind of trial runs where all of our employees have specific monitors that they wear for gases or other hazards. And if there's any issues, we want those responders to know how to come out and respond. So we work closely with them, and we do that at all of our sites. It's been our process in the past. As far as, does that answer your question on your?
I guess I kind of feel like it doesn't have to wait that long. Like perhaps there should be a discussion before it's approved, because you have other facilities that they could inspect and have that conversation and then say whether they're ready for it or not.
Yeah, and so I think that that's fine, right? And that could be conditions of part of this. Part of the approval is meeting with these first responders and getting them out there. We have no problem doing it. We're happy to do it. We want them to be safe. We want us to be safe, and we want our neighbors to be safe. So I have no concern about that. As far as the pipeline, we do have a map. I can share it with you closely because sorry, it's so small. But this would be in the notes for others. So you can see this is where our project would fit. It's on the other side of Highway 9. This is the Muller's Farms, G4 up here, that they're burying. This is the full Bohr area. So the pipeline would run on Kevin Muller's farm down here, across the street, and run right directly.
Jerry Muller's ground.
Not yet, so Mr. Jerry Muller has to agree to that.
But you said to the other land, but.
Yeah, we can't go across anybody, we can't go across anybody's ground there.
But also, we have other options, so I don't want.
I know that.
That's the only way to get there.
Have you read? Oh, whoa.
Just let him finish what he's talking.
Yeah, so that's where we put the line. So the DNR regulates these lines as well, highly regulated. Tons of engineering that has to go into them to make sure that they're safe and that we don't have any leaks. We have leak tests that we do. Our employees walk those lines every quarter to make sure that we don't have any leaks. And this is a very common practice. So we feel really comfortable with putting those new lines. And the third question.
Actually, what the EMS one was, if there is any kind of spill or accidental leak, whatever, is there, is it part of the protocol that we get notified as neighbours, or does it get listed somewhere publicly that this has occurred?
Yeah, so to be honest, as far as manure spills, right, the DNR is immediately notified, and then oftentimes the DNR will send a notification out. It depends on the volume of the spill and all the details. But if from like a gas leak or something that would happen, we haven't had any gas leaks. Everything's super tight on our end. But if there was ever a need to notify neighbors, anybody that's along the pipeline routes, we usually have tailors that go around and notification is part of it. We try to keep the public very informed of what we're doing.
And the third part of that was what the board's plan was to review the application to the DNR. When there was a suggestion here that even though the application goes to the DNR for approval, you have the ability to look at that and review it and have some input there.
We received the notice for the application for the biodigester last week, and I forwarded it to the board for their review. How much or what they plan to do with it, I don't know, but we did get that. They got an acknowledgement that we received it, and I sent it to the board. And our county sanitarian, Doug Grew, his office is over here near Tony Phillips' office, is our contact person with the DNR. So he gets included on all those notices, and so if any of the public ever wants to review one, they can talk to him. Some of them he has physical copies, or some of them he's going to refer you to see the DNR's website where they are posted.
Thank you.
I'm
Ellen Bell, another fairly near neighbor. I'm concerned about who will be actually operating the digester.
Yeah. So we can talk a little bit about that. So that's one of the things that's unique about Novilla, is we'll have 2 full-time employees on site, 5 days a week. So you have a facility manager and a facility technician. And then on Saturday and Sunday, they're on call, and then they come in and do rounds. So they check on the site every day. Somebody that's come to the site. One of the advantages we have is we have multiple projects throughout the US. And so we send these technicians and managers to our other facilities for training, to make sure that they're well trained on how to operate. And then they're here at the site. And so if somebody needs to take a vacation or is sick, they always have a backup. So that way we always have 2 people there. They're highly trained, 2 full-time employees.
In the back?
We just have a couple of comments in. I worked in DNR contaminated sites, and I also worked in the field office, and mainly working in water quality and helping communities identify their source of contamination. To your point, you can say like DNR's on top of this, but what I found with one of my municipal water supplies in region was that there were 3 livestock operations applying manure within the capture zone of the municipal water supply. their nitrate levels were off the charts. That municipal water supply then needed to spend a lot of money to put in an RO system. Those aren't cheap. If it's a small community of 1,000 or less, you can put in an ion exchange. That's still about $1 million, plus 50 to 60,000 operating maintenance costs. Regarding a private well, you will not probably know about it. No one's going to notify a private well because that is your own private well. When it comes to a community or a big public corporation, what we found in going around to the big capos was that there was no alternate language of here's how you do things in case of emergency. 99% of those employees are non-speaking English. What we wanted to see happen with those types of capos is that they put those emergency response instructions in Spanish, in other languages. What we also found is that the county emergency response coordinators were also so low on funds and staff. When there's an emergency, at one community, it was an emergency of someone calling in for an ambulance. There was no one to respond. It's kind of scary because there is no extra funding coming into a county to accommodate. The last thing I'm going to speak about on that also is when we did groundwater site investigations to identify the source of contamination. When it was an ag chem facility, the city could go after that ag chem facility because we identified that source very easily with our groundwater site investigation. In a karst topography, that's very, very difficult. Western Iowa, Northwest, Southwest, Southeast, pretty easy to do a groundwater site investigation. But when you're dealing with karst, it's difficult. And so what I looked at was like DOT, they have a slush fund that's just for all their glucose. It's over $1 million a year, just for their glucose. If I was going to introduce a company that may cause damage to a private well or a public well, I would ask that they have a slush fund to address whatever could happen. Now my question is, I own land in North Central Iowa. It's a huge deal of eminent domain that's going on in that part of the state. I would like to know how far these pipelines, methane pipelines, because when the whole thing started with ethanol, we were gangbusters. Let's go for them. All of a sudden, it becomes eminent domain wherever they want to put that pipe. I don't like my private rights, my private land being messed with. And so I see this as an eminent domain thing, as a big scary thing to me. But secondly, you can't change your aquifer once that's contaminated. And I don't know if you have any recourse, you probably don't have enough funds for a lawyer to fight a company. You're talking multiple. So that's my question is how far is that methane pipeline going? And who's purchasing the methane from that pipeline?
Yes, please. I had a presentation on, sorry, this is small. There's already an existing interstate pipeline. It's coming up to the. We are not, and so we're going to connect literally probably 200 feet, 300 feet, somewhere in that range to that pipeline. That's why we chose this spot, because it's sitting right on a giant pipeline that can consume way more gas than we could ever. And so there is no eminent domain. Even if I wanted to do eminent domain, I can't. I'm not a utility. All right. So like I have to get private easements for things, or I have to ask to use the county right away or things like that. But for the gas pipeline, it's already on the Bohr property right here.
Anyone else with any questions or comments?
Just curious to know, what was that?
State your name.
Terry. Whose pipeline is that?
Northern Natural Gas.
Tom?
My name's Thomas Hanson. I live out on Locust Road. China produces 3 times the greenhouse gases that the United States does. Since 2010 to 2023, their output has increased 426%. India produces a little over half of what we produce in greenhouse gases. And over the same time period, they've increased 350%. It'll soon surpass us because over the same time period, we've reduced ours almost 3%. We do that in this country through technology and innovation. And this is one of the projects that will help us continue that decline in emission of greenhouse gases. And so far, I have heard no organization that says that this project, they don't approve of it or there's something wrong with it. A lot of you have brought up issues that these gentlemen have answered. They are willing to do more, like the safety issue, discussing that before any kind of approval. So, and from that standpoint, I don't see any reason to not approve this project, unless you want to start going backwards in time and starting being more like China by getting rid of our technology and innovation. As far as all your concerns about increasing the size of our cattle herds and our dairy herds and our swine herds, you all continually to overlook the underlying cause of that. And that is a continued grants and subsidy program from the federal government that allows these companies to do that. A lot of these projects would not take place if the grants and subsidies were not available to help start them or expand them. And I doubt very many of you are like me, who have over the last 4 decades have spoke out about the government getting rid of grants and subsidies to private businesses. You all think it's great. This is the result of it. Maybe it's time that you start thinking about addressing the root causes of problems instead of continually putting Band-Aids. As far as the County Board of Supervisors not listening to you on this issue, take a look around this room. This is a very small representation of Winneshiek County who was able to come here on a Monday morning at 10:30 and spend 2 hours sitting here to discuss this problem. I don't know if any of you are like myself, but this takes away time from my business, and I'm making a financial sacrifice to come here because I'm concerned about our rights and our liberties. But this group here is a minority of residents in this county. Some aren't even residents of this county. They just have come here to speak. So I think the board gets comments from a lot of other people besides just 2 people that have come here. And I think it's an unfair thing to say that this board does not listen to the people of this county just because they don't listen to a minority or a vocal minority that comes here and speaks all the time. Thank you.
Being he mentioned safety issue, can I respond? I brought it up. Just a quick question.
Quick.
Okay, I don't believe that the representative from NORI, but had said what would happen if there's a plan for a rupture or of the digesters or 5 million gallons of digested material, where it would go or what would happen.
Yeah, so we look at drainage plans, we set up berms around the digesters to contain a spill.
Could it contain a whole spill?
It would create too much land and too much disturbance. I've never seen, it has never been the case with the digester just going everywhere. You might have a crack in a pipe, which we have not had, a little leap out the sidewall, things like that. But these are Danish, they call it Danish style digesters. They're built in Germany. They design them for all the weather conditions in the local, where they're being put in, snow load, everything else. And they're leak tested ahead of time and make sure that when it's full of manure, nothing is coming out. So it's not like, I mean, there would have to be a unprecedented major engineering flaw for the thing to just go boom. What it would be more likely would be a seep or something, or a crack pipe coming out. And that's why we're doing, we do rounds around it.
Yeah, given that, there has been documentation of ruptures, which would be pretty cataclysmic. It's a reactor, and there's an awful lot of chemistry that goes with this, a tremendous amount of chemistry.
Yeah, and so we really think that through. We do what's called a HAZOP on this, and say, what if this fails? What if this fails? What if this fails? And there's reasons we, like, a lot of our competitors will inject the manure at the bottom of the digester and take the manure out of the digester. Well, if there is a leak right there, you have the potential to start draining the digester. So what we do is we actually, when we inject it up top of a candy cane, so it can't leak backwards. And then when it comes out of the digester, we have a weir box to actually the gas break at the top of the digester. And so it just spills over. And so the likelihood of having 2.5 million gallons just going poof, it is extraordinarily remote. Where we concentrate on leak prevention would be on a crack that might be doing 30 gallons per minute or something like that. And that's not something we want to happen, but that's where we set up the berms and containing areas for that.
For that amount, not for,
We do not set it up for 2.5 million gallons, and I've been to 40 projects and never seen one set up to hold everything.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room with any comments?
Just had one last one. Jared Williams. So I actually, it's been interesting just kind of observing, listening, and I actually appreciate the passion that you are putting into caring about your community. I think that's great, right? We need more people to be passionate about it. I also want you to know, though, that we built Novilla, this company, off the premise of helping the environment. That was really our focus. And that's the only reason our company is here today, is trying to reduce fugitive emissions and to help the environment. And so we are highly invested in to make sure that the environment stays safe in this as well. We do not want to have any of these problems either. I think, I heard a lot about water, and it sounds like it's a real concern in this area. It's this civil right, right? It is, and we got to have clean water. End of story. But I really want you to, as a zoning, as you consider this today, I really want you to think about what we're doing, right? We're trying to just get industrial zoning for the small piece of property. And as you think about it, it's really important to know that our facility does not impact the water. Our industrial facility has nothing to do with water. We're not consuming more water. We're not putting anything into the ground, any contaminants, anything that could hurt the water. I think it's unfair to try to say, hey, these dairies are going to be expanding because of our operations, right? These dairies were here long before we showed up, and I can promise you they'll be here long after we're gone. They're in the business of making milk, right? And so they're going to do what they need to do as milk prices change. It is not going to be driven by Walnut Creek's RNG upgrading facility at their location. So I'd encourage you to consider that as you decide how to move forward. That from a zoning perspective, allowing us to put in an RNG upgrading facility will be beneficial to the environment, help the community.
Question, is there a finite amount? Oh, Chris Erickson. Is there a finite amount of manure that your digester can handle, and is there?
Yeah, so there's 5 million gallons of digester capacity, 2.5 million gallons.
Is that per day?
No, that's just how much it can be stored. And then generally you want to keep a 17-day retention time on the digesters. That's an NRCS standard. And so you take 5 million divided by 17. handle like 300,000 gallons a day, somewhere in that range.
And how many cows would?
So it can handle more cows than we're expecting. So each digester can handle with sand and all, probably 4,000 to 5,000 milking Holsteins, somewhere in that range. And that is more cows than we expect. We want to get actually better retention time out of this. We intentionally add more digestion capacity because we want to extract more gas from the manure. There's a retention time curve on that. And that says the more retention time you have in there. So if you have 25 or 30 days retention time, we break down that manure more and we get more gas out of it. So we don't expect to be anywhere near that. We could set 4,000 times 2 or something. That's not what we're expecting.
But it's important to know that those digesters, they come in standard sizes. Right? So it's not like we're custom making them for the number of cows. So we're putting in our standard size that we use at all of our facilities. And that's why there's excess.
So you couldn't handle it all and just build another one?
That would be the case. Or the manure would go to the lagoon as it is today. So we may not make that investment. We can say, hey, doesn't make sense. We don't want to put in new investment.
Yeah, if we had more manure, then we could properly handle. It would just go back to what it was doing before.
So how many cows do you have in relation to this?
So it's irrelevant. It's not, that's not what we're here for. And we are very hesitant to get into the business and hurt that. Right? So we don't discuss that.
I don't know the question.
Go ahead.
Julie, oh, are you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's just not for us as Novilla because we don't own it.
I'm Julie Fisher. I just have one question about your filtering process. When you talked about sending the gases through this tube, you filter out the methane that's collected.
Yep.
And the hydrogen sulfide, the CO2, are those injected into the air again?
No.
Where did those go?
It gets basically combusted into sulfur dioxide. So
It gets.
yeah, this is what our site in Michigan is like. Right, 98% last month inspected by the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan's found no violations whatsoever in what we're doing. And what happens is the biogas comes out of the digester, goes through an RNG upgrading plant, and then that's where it gets sorted. And so the gases we don't want go to a thermal oxidizer, like a big oven, we heat up to about 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit. And that nasty gas, toxic gas, hydrogen sulfide, that we don't want, gets combusted and turns into sulfur dioxide. And then we have to get air permitted to make sure it's being dispersed and everything else that's associated with it. Something we've done here about 15 times now. And we actually have to do computer modeling of looking at neighbors and worst case scenarios and downdrafts and making sure everything meets the standards, because the state of Iowa is going to come out and they're going to measure it and they're going to want to look at air modeling before they even issue us air permit. It doesn't. So it goes. Yeah, and so that's why, I mean, feel free to meet me after this out of the parking lot, and I'll go through this. We are not here, like, we'll walk through like the letters of community support we got in our other projects. And we're here to make things better. And it's the hydrogen sulfide already coming out of the lagoon. We're destroying it, turning it into something that's worse.
You would never see it. Like if with those thermal oxides running, we've never seen it.
So the plant's, yeah, the plant's running. There's not like a big smoke coming out or anything else.
Yeah.
It would, yes, but it's not.
It would set up and our plant would shut down.
Donna, you had another question?
Yeah. One of the things I looked at also in my investigation was the well logs in the area. There are 5 wells in section 4, and the soil levels are anywhere from 35 to 90 feet deep over the bedrock.
Yep.
So that was another factor in my vote. But the question I have is if you have a high water table, you mentioned a geological or geo survey on the site. What do you do if the water table is within, say, high enough that it's close to the base of the digester.
Okay, so so first we did do a geo study on this area, and I realized karst geography is a problem in this area. I've done projects in Kueny County, Wisconsin, for that very reason, for the reduced E. coli levels and whatnot. We did have them take a look at whether this was karst or not. I'll hand this out to the committee or board supervisors, excuse me. And our engineers have said that this is not karst right here. There's between 50 and 65 feet of glacial silt before you get down to bedrock right here. We did not see the water there, but I have done projects where we did have a high water table, which you end up having to do is do geopiers. And those are piles that you drive down the ground, steel rods that you drive down the ground to the bedrock to add support to it. It'd be like if you're building a bridge or something.
Is there any thought about putting like a clay liner or poly liner underneath, the footprint of the digester, so if there were any leaks in
Yeah.
the soil, that you would not get to the water again?
We've looked at it and it actually creates risks because what it can do is start trapping groundwater or rainwater in there. And then if you start getting frost, it gets starting frost heaps going up. So we don't want to do that. Oh, I'm sorry. Who's missing one? There it is.
Is there anyone online that has any comments or questions? Doesn't look like anybody online. Go ahead.
David Combs, neighbor. It doesn't have any water requirement? You're saying it does not use water?
No, so the only thing that we would have at our facility is maybe a hose bed if we needed to.
There's no big draw to process?
So we take the manure, put it right in the digester, heat it, stir it, get gas out. Yeah, we don't want water because what it does is it dilutes the manure and therefore we don't get as much retention time. And by the way, we've got to heat all this up to 101 degrees Fahrenheit. So if we added water, we got to heat the water up. That's more money. So we don't like water.
That's one of my concerns, is that it'd be a big draw on the aquifers. You know,
Well, if there's a draw on aquifer when you pressure test initially.
So
Mentioned that in the
Yeah.
P&Z.
So when we did that, when we've done it before in Iowa, we use stormwater. There are stormwater ponds that we move the water in and then we bring it right back.
So it doesn't come all out.
That was my question. Testing piping, you test it with water. And so the source of your water is going to come out the aquifer.
We actually test it there. So we do pneumatic testing. On the pipes and then the digester, we have to use liquid water. Yeah, but for the pipes, like your question, right? So we would fill those pipes with air and then we hold them for a certain period of time, and make sure that they don't lose any pressure.
You rule the effluent plant pipeline and digested pipelines to the various dairies. Who
Yeah.
owns those pipes?
That's a good question. We own them, but they're under the CAFO for the dairy. So the DNR will bring it up.
So you drink, you're drinks.
So it'll be under the dairy's CAFO. So digester and in manure lines, it touches manure. Yeah, so it's right. So it's either full bore or KG full dairies could fall under the dairy permit. But we do operate it. And we have agreements with the dairies that make sure we don't.
What would happen?
It would be contractually between us, we would be liable to fix it. However, the DNR would go to the dairy and say it's a violation of this.
But it's on my land.
It's on your land, and it's because we operate a similar project in Iowa right now. It would be on the dairy's CAFO, not your land. And if there was, it's on your land, but you wouldn't be liable for it. We'd be responsible. We'd be responsible.
I have to DNR that, and I asked the man, would you sign that? And he just said, no, I won't.
So they have Paul Petiti.
We're not signing. That didn't mean nothing.
So Paul Petiti with the Iowa DNR had, and Dan Morse has issued permits for those doings.
So why do you operate like from an LLC?
That's just how
What does the LLC mean?
It's a limited liability company.
Limit liability. You don't want to take full responsibility.
It's just, this is how we do business.
We gotta get back to the matter at hand.
Liability.
Yes.
Stacy Navi, I wasn't planning on commenting, but I think I bring a little bit of a different viewpoint. I moved away for 20 years. I grew up in Winneshiek County, grew up on a farm. I guess I just wanted to ask, the question I have is, how is this benefiting the residents of Winneshiek County? I know, projects like this definitely benefit the farmer, and God knows we all love a farmer. They work hard and they need help. But and I also bring a different viewpoint of my background is design, and advertising, and branding. So I guess I also want to ask county supervisors, what do you see our brand moving into the future? Winneshiek County. I see the oil and gas industry coming in and offering to provide the service that will help them and yes, reduce greenhouse gases. I'm all for reducing greenhouse gases and renewable energy projects. I have a background. I've been to the EPA, the Department of Energy. I love it. But I moved back here and realized that Iowa and Winneshiek County, we suffer because overall, I think we're a nice group of people. We don't question what our neighbors do. We kind of stay in our own lane. And so when, I don't know, I feel like big business industry comes in, we don't stand up enough. And I guess I just don't see this project unless maybe you could tell me, maybe the county is making a lot of money off this rezoning.
No.
Oh, don't go pointing fingers that way.
No.
No,
We'll do that.
we sit here, no.
Say you in particular, but
No.
because I hear like we have to train departments and EMS to respond.
Unfortunately, the county won't make any money off it.
You can check.
We're getting in the business of manure production essentially, and it's putting a heavy load and burden on the residents around this farmer. I mean, I wish the farmers well, but we also have rights here, and I feel like they're being impeded. So I have been to, as I said, the EPA, Department of Energy, DNR meetings, and it seems like everyone wants to pass the buck and they don't want to say no to a poor farmer, and I don't blame them, but this is something you could, what happens when you agree to this? What happens to the pie farmers that come in next? Then we're in the business of manure, and Winneshiek County turns into industrial manure plant. I don't know. Anyway, thank you.
Anyone else with any comments or questions?
I have a question to the board. What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to happen in Winneshiek County? Your name, Chairman, is going to be on the resolution, and your legacy will be, this has been wonderful for the county, or there will be dark manure running through our streets and through our rivers and our streets. That's your legacy.
No, way up to the topic.
That's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
Not quite a question. Well, it was. What is your legacy?
I want to do the best job I can for everybody in the county. And you have to take and look at every aspect of the rules and regulations within the county. If this site meets these specifications, you really have a hard time turning some of these down, as was with anhydrous ammonia plant by Jackson Junction. It met every state requirement, every county requirement there was. So how do you tell a landowner they can't do what they want to do on their land if it meets every requirement? Seems a little unfair if you do. I'm not saying I'm for this quite.
The rest of the county.
But that's being fair, is what I want to be to everybody that I can.
Yes, I may answer that. Okay, next time a farm comes up for sale, go buy it. And don't come complaining to us if we ain't got the tax dollars, if you don't want nobody new coming into this county to pay taxes, put a building up, spend a little more money so we get more tax dollars. Don't come whining to us because the roads are no good and this and that. We're doing our best job we can up here. We're trying to get new business to come to the county. Everybody else chases them out. We need the tax dollars to pay for the road system and all these free, everybody wants all this stuff. We only got X many dollars to work with. So pretty soon it says, what does the county actually want to get paid? You know, our job is, we're doing our best up here.
We want to keep on.
You saying that we're getting tax dollars off of this project?
Is it a piece of property?
Is it a piece of
Property,
property?
property taxed based on value.
Tax, nothing.
Well, but improvements to a property, just like, you know, you having an empty lot versus you having a lot with a house, you get pay more property tax, and that's what will happen. And actually, industrial property is taxed at a higher rate than agricultural.
Steve?
Thank you, Steve Lacy again. I just wanted to make 3 technical comments of some of my measurements and things I researched don't drive to some things that have been said. Just 3 quick points. The first is the nearest well to the earth and manure basin, which is on Bohr's property, is 200 yards, and the depth to karst based on those drill loggings is 9 feet. 9 feet to limestone. The karst. This is the current.
Yeah, money back.
60 to 95 feet.
Please mute your mics if you're online. Sorry. If you're online attending, please mute your mics.
I didn't know if the user part. Well, I wasn't here Thursday and Friday, but I said something to him tonight. Well, I think they got them all lined up. I said, oh, he said, well, we're just gonna, if we need it for reserve, you know. Yeah. But he, well, Roach.
Nobody on here said they couldn't hear us.
You just clicked it. You clicked it trying to mute her.
Oh, I
You
didn't
muted
realize
us.
that.
Yeah.
So my second point that was mentioned that this is the karst in your geotechnical report, which I haven't seen that relates to where the digester is located, but it's not far from the earth and manure basin. And I have looked at those geotechnical reports, and I'm concerned by 2 soil borings, B8 and B9, that show a distance to karst from the bottom of the basin of somewhere between 17 and 20 feet. And the requirement is 25 feet. So I'm trying to research that with the DNR, but that relates to the earth manure basin. But just so you know, this is the karst in that area is very, very irregular. Third point, had someone mentioned the water usage in the county and withdrawing from the aquifer. If you just do the simple arithmetic based on the amount of cattle listed in each manure management plan, do the simple arithmetic, you find that both facilities will be using more water than is legally permissible without a permit. You can use 25,000 gallons a day without a permit. One of the facilities doing simple arithmetic will be over 30,000, one will be over 40,000. So just so you know, those facilities need to apply for water withdrawal permits, and that is another possible place where the public has input. So there were those 3 things I wanted to make sure at least my technical review reflects.
So I do think it's important to just address that. So we just did our own geotech as well, because we always do it when we put in digester. And so it showed very different results than that. So I'm not sure what you look at.
One-page report that says no soil borings on it.
No, that's not what it says. The other piece, it's important, just once again, the reminder is, I don't want you to try to tie any expansions of these dairies to our project. I think it's really important that you consider that.
Okay. We have someone online with a question.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We need to mute ourselves again.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Just a minute, Paul. There's the volume on this machine. This is not the machine I work on in my life. So I'm not.
Down in the lower right-hand corner, remember we had that one other issue, one other time. You need to turn the volume up.
Where?
Because we couldn't hear them.
Yeah, I see that.
Oh, it's up most of the way.
Paul, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Oh, thank you. My name is Paul Wermers from Spillville, and I just wanted to comment. Thanks for all the public comments. Lots of good information was shared. I'd love to watch that webinar that was being talked about. It's a great deal of passion on some of these topics. My only request is that we please proceed slowly to allow we the people to review and digest all of this information. Policy review is tricky and can be counterproductive if rushed. Thanks everybody for your diligence and your duty to civil. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. All right. Any,
I don't see anybody.
move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Wait, were there any others? Would you need to ask?
Oh, we're gonna have to wrap it up here pretty quick.
The public hearing. Is- Okay.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. So we have consideration, comments, and possible action.
So your options for action today would be to schedule and hold the first reading. It is an ordinance. So there would be a first reading we could do today as a possible action if you wish to proceed to that step. After doing that reading, you could consider waiving additional readings or scheduling them for a future meeting.
I have a question for the applicants.
No, public hearing's closed, Steve.
Yes, I am. You know, it's green, everybody wants to go green and they're doing nothing but their job to try to help that out and there you go. I mean, it's the way every business going. It's, yeah, well,
I believe it has a lot of positives.
Can you take your comments now? We're having a discussion.
We're having a discussion. Go for it.
So I've only heard 3 outside comments in support of rezoning this for this purpose. I've heard many against it in the room today. So I don't know where the people are that are for it compared to those who are against it. And there's been made some very good comments of why we need to be careful here. The closest hazmat team is in Waterloo, Iowa, just for your information. We don't have training locally. We don't cover that locally. When there's a hazmat situation, we call Waterloo. Secondary to that, though, is that ag waste is not considered a hazmat in Iowa. It is in Minnesota and Wisconsin, I believe. It is not considered hazardous material here. So there's that issue. Just recently, we had the Waverly Shell Rock incident where the ethanol plant was found to be polluting. So we just need to keep all of this in mind as we make decisions as a board of what is the best thing for our community? What are the risks? What's the safest thing for our water and our air and our soil? When I attended the P&Z meetings, and it's in the minutes, I don't know if it's in the minutes, but I was at the P&Z meeting and one dairy said, yes, they will double their dairy production because of the capacity of these digesters. So that's another question to consider. I do have a question of who covers all damages that could incur from a leak. If you're piping stuff under Highway 9 and we have to dig up Highway 9 to create a fix for that pipeline leak, do you cover that type of work? And basic for me is water quality. It's in our comprehensive plan. It's what was found a top concern of our population here. It always has been. And Iowa We saw that map of the 17 beaches currently closed. I grew up in Iowa. We didn't close beaches when I was a kid from pollution. That was such a rare, I don't even remember one being closed when I was little. Our land and our livelihood has changed a great deal in the state. And we're losing our small family farms. We're becoming big ag business. I want farmers to be supported on small family farms and get back to regenerative farming personally. I think that we need to, and I'm not finished speaking yet, we need to, as a community, and I think, I can't remember who said it, but what are our values as a community? What do we want for our future generations? Are we going to be able to pass on our soil and our farmland if we've completely ruined it? Are we going to be able to go fishing with our grandchildren if the trout are dead? We need to consider our water. Are you going to be able to feed your cattle on your farm in the farm pond? If it's contaminated, no. So I do think it's our job as supervisors to keep all of the bigger picture in mind and be careful we're not falling for a greenwashing, so to speak. Is this truly in the bigger picture a green energy initiative, or is it just allowing for expansion of our large animal confinements? Is that the future we want for our state? And we do have people power here. So I'm weighing all of that in my thoughts on this.
I guess my concern would be if it stays as it is, maybe it's a good thing, but if there is an expansion of the number of animals in that certain area, what will we do with the waste? If the waste has to be moved further away, there's an expense and resource consumption in that too. So what's the gain? If it's, and is that, is there going to be an incident? I don't know. I looked at the pictures on TV after a great show and grain bins were just collapsed and tipped over in the middle of nowhere. It's like, wow, whoever thought that could happen? I don't know. I mean, that certainly is a possibility, I suppose. But like I said, if things could stay as they were, that would be maybe permissible or acceptable, but you can't only put so much on land without it going someplace where it shouldn't be.
That's why the DNR
And their regulations.
adjusts the regulations.
I think that the engineering firm has done an excellent job of how to design a plant that certainly has a long track record of experience between their leadership into this area of engineering and processing. Since this is a zoning issue and not an agricultural issue, I think what they've provided for us for information on safety and EMS cooperation and all of the first responders is excellent. I think that I don't see any reason to try to speculate that they're not going to continue to do that same level of follow-up. I think that this is a group of farmers who are trying to improve their processing and generate some other byproducts that are not as harmful. I think if you have a sludge that has a uniform nitrogen content that allows you to take and properly apply it to the soil, it probably has benefit over just pumping and spreading as we have hog farmers doing. And I wish there was perhaps something available that would take on the other CAFO operations within the state. I think our community and our county is dependent on its largest industry is agriculture. And I don't think I'm not going to speculate how many cows they may increase because that's speculation and there's no way to know. They have X number of cows now that they're trying to process their manure. And I think they've come together on several farms to do it. I think that's a benefit. I think I like the program. I think the zoning fits for it to be able to put this into manufacturing.
The location.
Right
next to the pipeline is really a key for this whole thing.
That's what
to function like it should.
The three of you are convinced this is a good thing. I would encourage you to demand that it go back to Ag 1 if you decide not to build your digester on this plot of land.
Yeah, I got no problem.
That's a reasonable ask.
Yeah.
I also would like to respect the board that voted 2-4, the majority wanting to not approve. That's, they did their due diligence in researching it.
But I'm what Donna, like Donna said, that you're concentrating that manure down tighter, so you got a more consistent project. You can do a better job of applying it. It's just, that's one of the biggest pluses out of it is, and we're producing energy. That's what everybody wants, renewable energy. That's what they're doing. They're trying to, yeah, I mean.
If we do go along with it, I do like the idea of putting something in there where the neighbors are notified in case of a spill along with the DNR. Because I only think that's fair to the adjoining landowners or people in the neighborhood. Seems like just a small ask, but that.
Just so you remember, from a procedural standpoint, you can't add conditions to the rezoning after the public hearing is closed.
I want to thank.
So you needed to agree on conditional rezoning before you close the public hearing. Just keep all the procedures in line.
I'd like to thank Mary Hoffman and Donna Rasmussen for both coming and explaining why they voted the way they did at the PNC hearing and the work that they did to evaluate the situation. Thank you.
I didn't hear in the discussion, and I'm not going to ask because I can't ask you, but I didn't hear anything about the concentrated levels of any mineral deposits in that digestate and what can the land take in those concentrated levels. So I don't have an answer for that right now.
That goes back to the DNR.
Their manure
The
management
manure
plan.
was,
For me, it goes back to the water quality issues, and I'm going to stand on my water quality issues.
okay, and that's when I asked the question whether it increases the nitrate level in the processed manure. It does not. So the nitrate level that's going on top of the land is the same as if you did not run through the process.
It will be more with increased cattle on that farm.
That's where the DNR comes in and regulates.
And I encourage everybody in the audience to, in fact, contact the DNR with all of the concerns you shared today. I haven't heard any motion, so I guess we're gonna keep talking about this.
The board through Doug Grew, our county sanitarian, will be required to make a public notice in the public notice section of the newspaper about the application to the DNR when it's filed. So that public notice will show up in the newspaper presumably in the next week or two, and we'll have instructions on submitting comments to the DNR.
I'd like to thank the gentleman from Ames. I didn't catch your name, Steve, for bringing up the aspect of standing and review and so forth for, for future knowledge. Thank you.
We can say, well, that's for the DNR, and we've had the CAFO things come up before. It's like, well, it doesn't matter what we do because they're going to do what they want, but we don't agree with it. Well, here's a situation where we're kicking it down to, well, the DNR will say whether they can have more or less. We don't agree with it. So this is one opportunity to let them know that we don't agree.
The current application to the DNR, the one that we received, did not change the number of livestock. That would be a separate application by the dairies to do that if they want to, and that would again come to you.
Oh, the DNR knows best. But yet we made the comment. We don't agree with that. So I'm just going to say that.
And I apologize to our public for not knowing the procedure and process here. We can do better and we need to do better. So sorry about that.
And I'm not against the DNR. I'm not against the farmers. But
to take any action.
Hold the first reading and would be the next motion if you want one.
Motion and a second to hold the first reading. Was this a resolution?
Which
It's
means,
an ordinance.
which means,
that they'll read this ordinance that stipulates the zoning change, after which time you will have the opportunity to either schedule a second reading or waive it readings.
so putting this into effect means we're approving the change.
This would be the first step of approving it, yes. You can hold the readings, you could vote yes to hold the readings and still vote differently when it comes time to adopt it. And holding the reading is just part of the procedure of getting to the point where you can vote to adopt it or not. So holding the reading is to read the ordinance, and what you're actually adopting is what the holding the reading does. Then, once you've finished the reading process, then you can have option of choosing to adopt the new ordinance, and that's a completely separate issue. So by approving a reading doesn't mean that you're approving adoption. That's a separate vote and will happen yet in the future.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the first reading. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye.
And it passes on a 3-2.
It would just be the first 2 pages are the reading or the ordinance. So you know, the 3rd page is a report of the outcome of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the 4th page is a map showing the
Just
reverse order. Yes, yeah. One's a map showing the change in zoning.
Third is the map. Fourth is the. All right, first reading. Ordinance amending the county zoning ordinance to change the zoning classification from A1 agricultural district to M2 general industrial district for the herein described property. Whereas a request for amendment to the zoning ordinance in Winneshiek County was submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Said request having been acted upon by the Planning and Zoning Commission following a public hearing. And whereas the request for amendment of the zoning ordinance pertains to the following described real estate. A triangular northeast portion of Lot 1 in the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 4 of Township 98, North Range 10 west of the 5th PM, Winneshiek County, Iowa. Whereas the said zoning requested that the property be rezoned from A1 agricultural district to M2 general industrial district, and whereas a notice of the time and place of a public hearing on said request was published pursuant to law, and whereas a public hearing as required has been conducted by the Winneshiek County Board of Supervisors. Whereas the Winneshiek County Board of Supervisors has considered the Winneshiek County Comprehensive Plan in the review of the applicant's request and does find that the request is consistent with the policies and goals set out in the Winneshiek County Comprehensive Plan. And now therefore be it resolved by the Winneshiek County Board of Supervisors that the zoning classification as to the following described real estate. A triangular northeast portion of Lot 1 in northeast quarter of southwest quarter of Section 4 of Township 98 North, Range 10 west of the 5th PM, Winneshiek County, Iowa, is hereby changed from A1 agricultural district to M2 general industrial district. And that the zoning of Winneshiek County, Iowa will be modified to reflect this change. Repealer. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this zoning ordinance or inconsistent with provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed to the extent necessary to give this ordinance full force and effect. Severability clause. If any section, part, or provision of this ordinance shall be adjudged invalid or unconstitutional, such adjunction shall not affect the validity of the ordinance as a whole or the section, provision, or part, therefore not adjudged invalid or unconstitutional. Effective date, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect after its passage and publication as provided by law. I recommend that we have a second reading next week. If that's open.
You can't make a motion, someone else want to make a motion, so. Or you could relinquish the chair and make the motion and.
I just recommend that someone else can take action on that. Or if you want to waive it, it's up to you guys.
I guess that gives a little more time if somebody has input. I don't know what we do. I know where I'm at in this.
See a change.
You heard the yes votes, so what?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I moved to waive the second reading.
All additional readings.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to waive all additional readings. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
So that 3-2 pass. Okay. Now you can choose to take action on the ordinance if you wish.
I would, make a motion from A1 to M2.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance from A1 to M2. All those in favor?
This would be a roll call vote.
Okay, this is roll call. Is there any further discussion?
I would just like to say, I think that it's a 2-4 vote, and I'm going to stand with our commissioner. But, nay.
And in part of discussion, I'm voting on larger community water issues. I'm gonna repeat the motion.
The motion is to adopt the ordinance that was just read.
It's just,
No.
well, I'm not calling for the vote. I was just had further discussion.
But you were.
No, I was calling, we will call for it. I just wanted to say that being, it was not a unanimous decision by the P and Z, it gives us a little more lateral room. I thought Mary and Donna gave some very good points. The other board members are not here to speak for themselves, but,
So I'm at, if they were so against it, they could have showed up and gave their,
They all did.
take my hats off.
okay. Well, I will call it for a vote now.
We're not done discussing that comment just made. I want to point out that I think we heard from 3 people in favor of who weren't the farmers or the company.
Point of order.
And no, it's not a point of order. We're still discussing. And the room, that everybody in the room, I've got notes here, everybody who talked. I didn't hear anybody that talked other than Tom Hansen, the company, that is in favor of it. The room is full of people saying, please don't do this to our county. But just for clarification on the fact of what we're seeing here with our own eyes.
Okay. Well, I will call it to a vote. Art?
Nay.
Shirley?
No.
Aye.
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 Passes thrown 3-2.
There's many procedural things here today.
3 places you'll need to. Ordinance in that report.
Thank you all for coming, everybody.
Thank you. We'll be outside if anybody has any questions.
Want you outside? Oh. So thank you.
Get this dated.
I just want to clarify one thing that we're going to expand the gym regardless of what it is. I know that. But that's not what you said that I recall it. Said, the digest is why we use, but the digest allows you you're waiting to be, you have this pass. So I just want to clarify that too. Okay. Thank you. That's my try.
Stick around, we'll be down here.
Staff.
Anything else?
To me, I think that's an excellent, excellent agenda. That's one of
Industry.
some future agenda, process and procedure review. No, there's Right, when Andy comes back, I think that's something, a session we have with Andy.
Right, motion to adjourn. So. For John and all those who thank you, say aye.
Well, to Shirley.
All of these people work too.
Is the meeting still on?
They just adjourned. Yeah, there's a lot of talking.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish we had our system.
Like, our well, that's it.
There's only two of us.
Yeah. No, I'm. I have. And when you say on the record, all I do is I keep it. So if anyone ever requests, I can distribute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, so I have all the ones that were emailed over the weekend, plus some submitted today. Okay. Yeah, no, that's kind of what I do here.